This journey in the life of our main character turned out to be incredibly long. The story begins near the train station. Someone's shoes are standing on top of neatly folded clothes, and the whole thing is lying together on the edge of a train platform. A man opens the camera on his smartphone and takes a photo of the above-mentioned objects, accompanying the photo with a cliched word. He looks at what he has captured in the picture, and turning to himself, asks if this place is really correct. The screen asks if he wants to register, and the owner of the smartphone continues out loud, agreeing that if the place is not right, he will have to go to another station. The next text on the screen is a notification that the owner's profile has been successfully updated, followed by notifications of rewards. The guy's hands are shaking. A satisfied cry escapes from his chest. He is happy that he was finally able to open the 99th ending. The next moment, he lets out an even more joyful cry, feeling relieved that he managed to complete this mission. He thinks he may be the only one in the country who has managed to see all 99 endings. A passerby looks at the speaker in bewilderment. This old man smiles as he thinks about how kids can have fun these days, just by interacting with their phones. As the train passes, he, still smiling, wonders why his daughter-in-law is so desperate to take the phone away from her child. But after the last carriage of the train reveals a view of the boy, the man changes his mind, now understanding why his daughter-in-law did it. The guy's head is filled with the question of what to do now, and the screen of his smartphone starts to light up, signaling an incoming call. His mother calls him, and pressing the answer key, the boy raises his voice in confusion, greeting his parent. It is already quite late, and the woman asks in a slightly concerned tone where he is now. But the gentle voice is a deceptive maneuver, as the worried mother is furious, asking at which station her son is this time. She hopes it's not a homeless shelter like last time, and her father whispers ominously that he is truly evil now. The boy calmly names the station, and both parents are overcome with chills. He reflexively and hastily removes the smartphone from his ear, as the next moment it begins to smoke due to the explosive words. The neighbors who live below this family are again hearing the shaking ceiling, through which every word full of anger can be clearly heard. The child of the family below informs his parent about the quarrel, and the latter asks him to ignore it, while our hero's mother screams that she has had enough. The boy stutters that he loves her and will be home soon, but the woman replies that as soon as he comes home, she will fix it for him. Her husband asks if maybe it's worth finding out where exactly their son is and offering to take him away. The woman immediately softens, agreeing with her husband. The man immediately sends his son a message asking if he has money for a taxi or to pick him up, because his mother is angry and has been standing in the plank position for a long time. The guy refuses, saying that he has enough money. He understands that he is finished, since things are like this, and his father asks him to be careful and return home quietly. He apologizes and thinks about ending the game and going home, but his eyes widen at what he sees next. The screen again shows the words that the player has completed 99 endings, and congratulations on a job well done. The next notification states that this is the real moment to restart his life, and the boy's eyes get even bigger. Restart his life from scratch, a divine augmented reality game with access only for the most dedicated enthusiasts with a secret route. The boy talks about this and gasps. He doesn't even know where to look for guides now, although they weren't particularly helpful before anyway. Our hero's name is GD, and he remembers how he used to be approached with the question of whether he was still playing this game. He answered positively, and was asked where they would check in now. The guy answered and suggested that the interlocutor go together. The latter was amazed. He was asked what he would do if he lived in the middle of nowhere, and GD replied that he would spend everything he had and then get a part-time job. He is completely absorbed in this game. In one story, he started out as an applicant who was rejected from law school 4 times and ended up as a prosecutor in court. In another, he debuted as a street musician in an unpopular area, and upon graduation, he reached the top spots on all music charts. He did everything he dreamed of doing, but could not do in real life, in the game, although sometimes this required incredible efforts. And this game, Reboot, became more real than the real life of a teenager. GD looks at the screen of the raised smartphone with wide eyes in surprise, wondering if the game is over yet. A glimmer of hope flashes in his eyes as the boy simultaneously asks himself what this secret story could be, or create your own, while the system notifies you that the download is complete and offers to choose one of the skills as a reward. Since the game is not over, GD chooses, because he needs this skill. But for some reason, nothing changes, and the guy does not understand what is going on. Just in case, he checks the network connection, which is not there, and the next moment he screams, as the system sends a notification. Skill, national level intellectual, is 99% talent and 1% effort. Studying is also a talent. No matter how much time you spend at your desk, lack of success is equal to failure. The man calls out the number of the next question, which is 21. It begins with the words that this event led to Western intervention this year. The participants think hard. In July 1866, an American ship was burned. We need to answer the name of the captain of this ship. The presenter lets out an enthusiastic interjection, having fished out with his own eyes from the crowd, a participant who already knows the answer to the question asked. He continues, noticing that a contestant named Jidi Long is once again answering as soon as he hears the question, and asks if he is confident in himself. The boy is confident, which he immediately states, and his voice, filled with genuine confidence, reaches the very ceiling. After a while, a break is announced, and Jidi leaves the room, going to the toilet, where he breathes a sigh of relief. He hid here from prying eyes, as he was stunned by the fact that all these people suddenly surrounded him with the intention of chatting. One of the participants gasped in surprise, noticing that even a lazy person had talent, and their comrade, with a bright smile, gave Jidi another compliment. The guy is confused, saying that it is not like that, and wondering if this is the need for esteem according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The door to his booth opens slightly, and the man excitedly asks who he is, because Jilly doesn't know such smart things, and he gets scared. The intruder continues to scream, telling the demon to get out of his friend's body. The guy tells the crazy Julian J to close the door immediately. When the friends leave the toilet, Jidi tells everything, and the interlocutor, wanting to make sure that he understood correctly, decides to clarify. He asks, so his friend has memorized all the manuals in order to receive the title of the best intellectual in the country in Reboot. But Julian finds it hard to believe. Jilly jokes that if you hit him with a tablet with 50,000 pages of information, he could do the same. However, that day, along with the electric shock to the head of the most devoted player, a stream of knowledge poured out that an ordinary person would not be able to understand. It was after that incident that obsessive thoughts began to come into the teenager's head. He understands perfectly well that the power of this skill is changing him. Jidi studies the book, sweating profusely, and the mother, seeing that her child is not yet in bed, asks affectionately if he is going to sleep. He replies that he will soon go to bed, thinking that, despite the fact that this power is changing his brain, fortunately, it still has not changed his passion and will. And that's true, because after all, Jidi spent 6 whole years on the reboot. Of course, nothing in life comes easy, so he had to cram as if his whole life depended on it. But afterwards, there was satisfaction and fatigue. They were intoxicating, as if the boy had suddenly become omnipotent. He was thinking about the show that was supposed to take place in a month at his own school. Julian asks if his friend has really changed that much, and then rephrases whether this is his true self. But one way or another, the schoolboy notes with a smile that Jidi is now shining much brighter than in the last 7 years. He promises to root for his friend until he is the last one left, and the silent interlocutor smiles reservedly. Jidi thanks Julian, telling him to hurry up and asking if his team's choreography performance isn't during the break. The guy invites his friend to eat together after the event and the scholarship awards ceremony, celebrating 2nd place with a restaurant and 3rd place with pizza. Jidi asks why his friend eats so much but never gets fat. But before he can hear the answer, a crowd of people pounces on him with questions. A schoolboy is asked whether he checked his preliminary exam scores, and he, feeling awkward under the pressure, replies that he did. The interlocutor asks him if he is aware that he could be the only one in the entire country with an unrivaled rating. Jidi becomes embarrassed. He says it's not that difficult, and then asks if the result has been calculated. The organizer replies that he will give him all his savings. Jidi turns to his friend, apologizing and saying that since his mother didn't believe him, he thought his friend would think the same. Julian flares up, asking who he is, again telling the unknown to get out of his friend's body right now. The schoolboy gets irritated and asks his interlocutor to stop it. As night falls on the city, loud voices are heard from Jidi's apartment. Only now the cause of the unrest and the mood are different. A schoolboy got the highest scores on his preliminary exams. The child says that this family is laughing today. His mother asks to let them enjoy it. Jidi, looking puzzled, says that it is his fault, because all this time he only showed that he was addicted to games. The mother can't stop admiring her son's report card, which now hangs in a frame like a painting. The woman's gaze turns dark as she turns it to her son and begins to say that if this was an educational game, he should have told her about it earlier. But the woman's mood changes again, and she suggests that they drink to the early admission of her brilliant son to university. The father asks with a sweet smile what Jidi's plans are before entering college. He assumes that his son will take up tutoring. The mother likes this idea, because even their most distant relatives seem to have gone crazy, literally begging their family to give them the schoolboy as a tutor. Knowing better than anyone how things really are, Jidi starts to laugh nervously. Replacing his laughter with a smile, the schoolboy expresses his thoughts about considering going on a solo hike. Skill, having will. You will find the way. Knowledge increases in diligence. The body is strengthened by training. Style is acquired in imitation of models. Purification with water at midnight bestows perfection. 108 wipings on each of the 77 days, washing the face with the moisture and drinking the rest. This ritual should be performed in front of the wish-fulfilling statue, which sits on a cliff. Jidi shares with his friend that he was allowed to check it out in one of the temples, but he thinks that it can be replaced with a similar place. He is amazed. He asks if his friend has really been doing all this all these days, and he retorts by asking if he really thinks he looks like an idiot, that he cheated. He registered and made copies of the photos of his bow 108 times, but now that he had changed, such tricks would no longer work. GD recalls how the monk told him that the path was difficult because of the uneven stonework and suggested that they go together, and it turned out to be difficult. The schoolboy had spent all his strength just on the journey to that place and had only made 3 bows so far. But he's not going to give up so easily, and memories of being asked to borrow his sports uniform envelop him like a cocoon. They called GD by this nickname, Spectacled Pimpled Pig, and the guy explains this to his interlocutor, who retorts, changing it. He asks to take a photo of it and send it to him, and the schoolboy, opening the camera on his smartphone, says that the front camera mode scares him. Julian laughs, drooling, and says that this guy's self-irony is at its best. The time was not a joke, but a genuine reaction. He was afraid to look into the unfogged mirror, and seeing his already hated self more clearly, he had no idea what to do. GD still wants to be born again and have no skin problems, but an eternally fit body, despite the quantity and quality of what she eats. But there is a paradox in it. The guy also does not want to be reborn, because he wants to remain the son of his beloved parents. He remembers his mother handing him an envelope saying that she was going to the temple again, and GD confirms this, but says that he has enough money. But the woman insists, saying that caring for her father consumed her so much that she completely forgot about her own son and neglected him. She asks him to consider that he does not need anything, as long as he and his father earn enough, because this is the only life. The mother then thanked her son for the fact that, being left to his own devices, he had grown up to be such a wonderful person, and said that she loved him. And GD, bowing down to the stone statue as low as possible, promises his parents to return to them as a son they will be proud of. Finally, the last of the 77 days arrives, and a monk enters the boy's room, asking if he is ready to descend from the mountain. He turns to the novice, and the brightest smile lights up his face when the dramatically changed guy says that he is ready and thanks him. The usual bustle is taking place at the airport, passengers are preparing to board, and those who have already arrived are met by acquaintances, friends, and potential colleagues. Some girl with a sign that says they love someone almost screams as she addresses the person she cares about. A small group of 3 guys walks past, one of whom is wearing a mask, and the other is waving his hand in a friendly manner, smiling, and they are filmed. 2 stern-looking men in formal suits and glasses, apparently security, ask the crowd to move aside. One of them turns to listen when he receives a message from his earpiece, asking if there are any members who have fallen behind because of fans. The man answers negatively and in monosyllables, because this information is enough to continue doing his business. They ask him to make sure that the man is really just an ordinary passerby, and he receives an unflattering answer. He is asked how it is possible to confuse an ordinary person with a celebrity even with sunglasses, and the man apologizes to GD, then says, everything is fine. The girls in the crowd begin to talk to each other, passing rumors to each other. Some of them were sure that the guy was an actor, and it was really easy to confuse them, and the reason is obvious. After the changes that happened to him, GD looks very handsome. The interlocutor asks where the traitor is now, enjoying Italy alone. The answer follows. The traitor is looking for a meeting place. GD is given one last chance, and he responds that the changes that have happened to him are not plastic surgery, and he is asked to stop lying. Peeling a tangerine, Julian says that even a lottery ticket is not a panacea, so where did his friend find the second one? They answer that it is here. They reminisce about the past, when GD sent a friend a photo on the 7th day of his grueling workouts, believing that his legs had become slimmer. The interlocutor then mercilessly retorted, replying that he was eating a pork leg and sending a corresponding photo as a demonstration. The guy got angry. The skill, if you have the will, you will find the way, is not the ability to change your appearance in 77 days. It is something else. Even if you are buried under the mud, if you continue to reach for the surface, like a lotus bud, you will shine in your dazzling glory. This is precisely the embodiment of the wisdom of the skill. Having will, you will find the way. The plane has been flying for some time, cutting through the fluffy clouds with its wings. The passenger looks out the window. A flight attendant approaches him, asking with a smiling, polite look if he needs anything. But he replies that he doesn't need anything. But the woman still shows concern, shyly handing the guy a blanket with the words, "It seems he coughed." He thanks her in surprise. Another flight attendant hands GD a drink, asking if he wants it. He replies that he already has one, and she asks again, as if insisting. He tries to remain polite, puzzled, and smiles, politely thanking, but in reality he finds such behavior annoying. There is a note attached to the bottle, and GD finds this predictable, thinking that the allure of beauty is truly astounding. The number of notes he already has exceeds the number of contacts stored in the schoolchild's phone. He recalls a parent asking him if his classmates on a foreign language course abroad were his peers. Mom and Dad were happy that their son would go on his first school trip, because he was always fixated on the game. He smiles. The plane continues its flight, and GD assumes that now that he is an excellent student and a handsome guy, he will be able to make a lot of friends. Later, the plane arrives at one of its destinations, namely one of the largest cities in Italy, Milan. Arriving at the hotel, the schoolboy falls onto a large bed, throwing his arms out to the sides and staring with wide eyes at the ceiling. He is stunned that no one is talking to him and wonders why this has happened. But GD has missed the crucial fact. The participants of the language program, Big Bell, were the best students, ready to do anything to compete until the very end. Naturally, their self-esteem, formed thanks to their academic success, was higher than that of the average student. It is quite understandable that GD, who appeared before them all so suddenly, brought chaos into their picture of life, sowing the seeds of doubt. He recalls thinking that if he demonstrated how well he spoke a foreign language, they would come up with questions, but the students were puzzled. In addition, another unexpected factor arose. GD was on a completely different level than everyone else. This was a blow to them. The guy tries to fall asleep with thoughts and hope that he won't have to spend these 2 weeks completely alone. The next day, GD is sitting at one of the tables in a local cafe, waiting for the waiter to come to him with his order. When this happens, the guy exchanges routine phrases with the gray-haired man, while simultaneously thinking that, as a result, he did not sleep well. He is glad that he will have breakfast early, but when he eats alone, the food seems tasteless. He thought that if he changed, everything would be different. These kinds of thoughts make the guy's appetite decrease, but as soon as he manages to taste the croissant, his appetite increases sharply. A freshly baked, crispy croissant with a soft and chewy cheese-like filling evokes indescribable emotions. A look of extreme satisfaction appears on GD's face as he enjoys the taste and wonders what the filling is inside. Suddenly, his gaze is drawn to a man sitting nearby, who is sipping some drink from a cup and reading a newspaper. His appearance evokes involuntary admiration, because the man looks immaculately dressed and incredibly well-groomed. GD falls into himself, deep in thought, and a serene smile appears on his face, and a floral aura reigns around him. He is inspired by the elegant stranger, reprogramming himself and thinking that now is not the time to be sad after such a journey to this city. He thinks he's a cool guy enjoying a cup of coffee in the fashion capital, but the drink hits his mouth and spills back out. The guy is amazed that he really made the wrong order. The drink turns out to be incredibly bitter, although the receipt clearly states that coffee was ordered. A blonde beauty comes up to him from behind and, lifting her sunglasses, says that in Italy this word means espresso. She asks if he wasn't warned, and GD replies that he didn't know, but he should have checked beforehand. He thinks the stranger is beautiful. Smiling slyly, the girl admits that because of such vivid emotions, she cannot allow herself to miss this moment to meet. The stranger asks who the interlocutor is, a model or an actor, and he replies that he is a school graduate. She is amazed at the waste of talent. GD, feeling awkward, politely thanks the girl, complimenting her appearance, and is about to add something else, but is interrupted. The interlocutor hands the guy a business card with the words that he needs to work on himself. He is too shy. He awkwardly asks again, thinking that he has ruined everything, and the beautiful stranger kisses the guy on the cheek, thanking him for the compliment. She says goodbye, offering to call if she is interested, and advises him to behave in accordance with his appearance in the future, starting by straightening up. The girl wanted to add something else, but with a meaningful look at her interlocutor one last time, the course of her thoughts changed direction a little. She says if she knew what he looked like without his glasses, he would have gotten a kiss on the lips instead of the cheek he's still holding on to. Expressing annoyance, the stranger leaves, and GD, disarmed by her behavior, still cannot come to his senses, following the figure with his eyes. In his head, the scene that just happened looks a little different, where he is embarrassed that they are from different countries, and the girl calls him a prince. It's hard for him to believe that such a beauty decided to meet him, and the guy is going to urgently save her number. But he is surprised. The reason for the meeting turns out to be not quite what GD thought, because the business card belongs to a modeling agency. The guy sees his mother with a sweet smile, suggesting that her son stop daydreaming, and he is convinced that it was a street casting. Suddenly he grabs his eyes, shielding them from the bright light, starting to complain about the sharpness, and the interlocutor who came up asks the reason. The guy gasps and, moving his hands away from his face, begins to smile. His glasses are already back on, and Aunt Cindy comes up. Smiling nervously, the woman asks her nephew not to call her aunt and not to irritate her, because she worked until dawn and was very tired. The guy remarks that she got up early for someone who worked all night, and she replies that it would be stupid to just sleep when they are in Italy. She delicately retorts that her nephew also woke up early, since the others are probably still sleeping. GD laughs nervously, admitting that he was so excited that he couldn't sleep. The guy mentally sheds bitter tears, thinking that the excitement before the competition is not the only reason for his insomnia. Meanwhile, Cindy, looking at Giddy's breakfast, notes that he took the same thing as her, and it looks delicious, and hope flares up in the guy. He suggests that perhaps she can help and admits that he has something else that is bothering him. The woman asks what happened. The waiter brings the guest a tray of food, which turns out to be larger than the schoolboy sitting opposite, who begins to fidget. A silence falls, which becomes longer with each passing second, and Giddy looks at Cindy's breakfast with admiration. The next moment he says, "So this is what it's like to have the financial resources of an adult," and the guy mentions reboot. The woman counters that this is not the case, and asks about the game and asks to tell the owner that it seems the order was mixed up. GD agrees. He approaches the waiter and says that his companion was given the wrong order. She didn't order that much. But the man says that it's not a mistake. GD shoots, he carefully clarifies. Then why were additional dishes served, already having some assumptions on this matter? He considers this a form of fraud, when they bring food that was not ordered, so that tourists who do not know the language overpay. But that's not the point at all. The waiter replies that it's all because he himself wants to see this woman here more often, and asks him to pass on a message to her. GD turns half-turn, hearing the question from behind. What did that person say? The aura emanating from Cindy is oppressive. The guy asks, puzzled, if he should tell the woman the truth, and she rushes him, arguing that she is hungry. A little later, a flock of birds takes off from the roof, rising into the air above it and beginning to dance their ethereal dance. Cindy, covering her face with her hand to hide her hysterical laughter, thanks the waiter in broken Italian. GD asks her interlocutor if this doesn't bother her, and she smiles and answers the question with a question, why should it? The schoolboy looks puzzled, stating the fact that the woman had just been flirted with. Cindy smirks indulgently, asking what's the big deal. It was just innocent kindness, and says something that makes the other person tense up. After all, a beautiful woman had been hitting on him this morning, so shouldn't that have bothered him much more? The schoolboy turns away, hiding his embarrassment and asking if Cindy really saw this. But she keeps looking at her charge. She is curious how a person who can have the whole world at his feet if he wants can be so innocent. A rare quality. But then a thought comes to mind, and an unambiguous comparison appears in her head. Cindy continues the conversation. She says, although she is not the head writer, she wants to give him advice and asks what he thinks is the most important thing in broadcasting. The interviewee thinks that beautiful celebrities and good cameras, as well as lighting. Cindy asks why he thinks so. GD answers that you first need to grab the viewer's attention with a picture, so that later the views and ratings will start to grow. Cindy praises him for his intelligence, but asks if the secret to the Big Bell's success is also in the picture. The guy is surprised. The woman says that the word broadcasting is a compound word, because it is made up of two other words. If you have caught someone's eye and want to impress something on them, you need to give them that something. The beauty who approached GD this morning caught his eye with her looks, so she easily gave him her business card. The waiter and the owner of the cafe all rolled into one attracted Cindy's attention with the quality of his service before conveying his message. Of course, this does not always end well, the woman says, giving a specific example. You can give her flowers, but she may not like them. Then the one giving it would be awkward. GD can imagine this picture perfectly, because before every girl shied away from him. He squeezes the phrase out of himself, that's for sure, because he understands better than the other because of his past, which is part of the schoolboy. Cindy meanwhile continues by saying that it is not necessarily negative, and that it can still convey a message to her. Under the surprised look of her interlocutor, she asks, smiling, isn't that enough? The bus makes its everyday journey through sunny Italy. A man, apparently a tourist, is studying a book, on the cover of which is written the name of the country in which he is currently staying. It's a girl, and she's confused about how to pronounce what's written. The phonetics are so different from English that she doesn't understand. Suddenly she is called out and, tearing her gaze away from the page and looking up at her interlocutor, the tourist becomes embarrassed, her cheeks become flushed. Giddy asks Cindy, raising a cup of coffee to her mouth. What if the problem is not with the flower itself, but the person hates the flower itself? The woman asks why you spend time with a man you don't like. It's just as rude to him. But in reality, this is not something the other person should worry about. Smiling brightly and extending his hand to the girl, the handsome guy asks if maybe he can help her with something. It's the 4th day of studying a language abroad, and the city is living its own life. The students look exhausted and depressed, and all because they miss their national cuisine. One of them notices a church and suggests that his friend pray about it, who asks if praying in this country is not supposed to be in Italian. Another foreigner emerges from the cathedral, enveloped in a depressing aura, and he actually reads a prayer in a foreign language. A boy sitting on a bench notices his appearance, noting that the schoolboy doesn't look very healthy, and he asks to save him. Giddy thinks that Cindy's advice was helpful. Remembering her stunned face, the woman herself did not realize that she was able to help. The woman's advice helped awaken the latent activity and courage of the high school student. The girls now look at him with surprise. One of them shares with her friend that she thought Giddy was an arrogant heir, but he suddenly started talking to some of them. This courage turned out to be infectious. The girls looked at each other, thinking about the same thing. They also decided to talk to him, and later their joint photo appeared on Instagram, causing envy among their same-sex peers. GD became very popular among girls. They offered to take pictures with him, and even their lenses, if only he would take off his glasses. The guys looked at all this with undisguised envy and malice, shuddering with hostility at every mention of their opponent's name. A few hours later, GD himself was no longer happy with his impressive appearance and friendliness, because he had become in great demand among the girls. And after that, he became closer to the boys than to the girls, and then they began to praise the schoolboy, and he awkwardly thanked him. And also, along with that, GD began to be afraid of new tourist places. because he had to take pictures with the changing landscape. Looking at their friends' photographs, the guys thought it was quite natural that beautiful people always become walking photo shoots. One of them thinks that being moderately attractive is best, and Jitty replies that even moderation should be in moderation. This phrase becomes a red flag for other guys, and the culprit starts running away from the moderately attractive ones who have been offended. Sometime later, Jitty looks at a photo that was recently posted and is amazed at the number of people who liked it. At the moment, their number is almost 10,000, and before the guy's eyes, it reaches this mark. At that very moment, something seemed to shoot through him, and an impulse pierced his head, similar to the one that Jitty had experienced earlier. At that very moment, something hits him from behind. A man runs into him, slapping him on the back, and the schoolboy straightens up. He doesn't understand what just happened. He has a feeling that his clothes don't fit him properly. Jitty feels like he's going to be in a lot of discomfort if he doesn't straighten his back, and he looks at his hand as if it were being enveloped in a discharge. Aversion comes to mind, and the student immediately asks his classmates whether they have uploaded photos of him to social networks. One of the girls answers positively. The second looks on, smiling. Jitty asks how many likes this post got. They are delighted with the answer, as the number goes over 10,000, and the guy is finally convinced that it was. Back in her room, Jitty looks for information to confirm or deny her assumption, and finds it. The reboot turns out to be alive, it's still being played, and the guy recently managed to complete several missions without any effort at all. And in general, to achieve this, everyone does not need to spend a lot of effort on it. Just create 10,000 accounts. This is the skill. I am the best. A guy sitting on a chair surrounded by admiring glances thinks about how he thought he would never be able to get the skill. He's interested in knowing if there's a limit, if he can get all 99, if there are any side effects. It looks like he's getting rewards for CBT, then OBT, and now daily bonuses are coming one after another. It's cool. People around her are interested in how Gidi manages to just sit there, as if she were advertising chocolate or strawberry gelato. Looking at the guy with loving eyes, she thinks that she loves him. The brunette's gaze is filled with envious hostility. Gidi's attention is drawn to voices nearby. It looks like there is a conflict brewing nearby. The guy looks towards the sounds and wonders what is going on there, whether all these people have decided to start a fight. He approaches them from behind and tries to see what caused the crowding. Hearing words about increased confidence and dynamics, the man speaks to his interlocutor in a raised voice, saying that he did not mean this pose, and then shouts, ordering him to stop immediately. Another person calls someone, notifying the other person that their model is no longer needed and can be picked up. The shoot has ended early. The man, apparently a photographer, angrily declares that he no longer intends to cooperate with this agency. Gidi receives a message. The interlocutor asks why it's so noisy, and he replies that there's a modeling shoot going on, and he's very worried about it. The woman who asked to take the model asks the scriptwriter what they will do. Will they reshoot tomorrow? He asks to wait. A triumphant smile appears on his face, and the man begins to laugh contentedly, his gaze filled with anticipation. Noticing Gidi in his field of vision, the screenwriter says that he is God's favorite, because he gave him such wonderful material. The man orders his henchmen to bring this man to him. No matter what effort they have to put in, he is too valuable. The skill, I am the best, captures the essence of when a person is on top of the world, and it is not about working hard, and not even when he boasts about his skills or spends money, but when everyone is looking at him. Some people are born with the gift of always being the center of attention. A man in an expensive suit bites his finger and chuckles in displeasure, a vein appearing on his face, a sign of irritation. His name is Leonardo, and he is a recently fired model who is biting his fists in frustration, even laughing at the fact that he is being replaced. And by whom? Some amateur from the street, who is currently being prepared for filming, in which a completely different person is supposed to participate. Gidi admits that this is his first time wearing makeup and asks what to do if his face itches. The makeup artist tells him to be patient, mentally surprised. Leonardo thinks the photographer is stupid, remembering his words about it not being just a pretty face. He said that people like him notice things like this right away, because such an aura can be felt even in a crowd. Gidi looks at the screen of his smartphone in thought. Opening Cindy's contact, he waits for her response. Once the response is received, the guy notifies the photographer that his supervisor has given permission to shoot, and the man gives a positive mark. He asks if Gidi is a professional model, thinking that even if she isn't, he won't refuse to shoot. The woman looks at the guy with interest when he answers. If the question concerns his modeling experience, there is none at all. After a while, a spotlight is turned on, notifying those present that filming has begun. In his mind, Gidi adds another phrase that continues his words, while simultaneously adjusting his sleeve. When it comes to his skills, the guy is a professional model, and he confidently takes the first pose for a shoot. He's just not famous enough yet to have his own agency. And at that very moment, a ray of light falls on the elephant, which was a metaphorical image of a schoolboy in Cindy's opinion. The picture is accompanied by a sound effect, announcing the destruction of the links of an equally metaphorical chain. And the elephant, leaving its insignificant cage, begins to move towards the long-awaited freedom, its light. The man's face looks puzzled and surprised. Beads of sweat begin to roll down it, and an involuntary question flashes in his head. The photographer, accompanying the clicks of his camera, which reflects the glare of light, accompanies his actions with value judgments. The man, with delight in his eyes and on his face, asks the model to raise her chin higher to show arrogance. And then he announces to his assistants that they will now be filming with props. They look puzzled. Leonardo covers his mouth with his hand to hold back the scream that is threatening to come out. He thinks about what he sees just by looking at the photo shoot, and the young man sees covers that reflect the success of the person depicted on them. The reader's hands freeze just to enjoy the beauty and grace of the guy depicted on the pages, their gazes full of adoration. Leonardo swallows nervously, his face expressing confusion. Even he understands without anyone saying anything that the person currently acting as the model is inimitable. He watched the photo shoot so he could spit in the writer's face if it turned out terribly, but it turned out completely differently, and Leonardo now leaves with only the awareness of the difference in their levels. Later, Gidi returns to her home country. He decides to take a shower, standing under the pleasant streams to wash away the dirt and fatigue. Finishing, the guy, still obeying old habits, turns off the pressure slowly. He also slowly wipes his head with a towel, drying his hair, which is damp from the water. The gaze falls on the mirror completely by accident, which attracts Gidi's attention, because the outlines reflected in the smooth surface are no longer the same. He cleans the reflective surface from the steam with a jet of the shower and chuckles, smiling and contentedly stroking his handsome face. Embarrassed by his own compliment and the realization that it is true, Gidi calls himself handsome, but quickly switches gears. The language internship brought him a lot of experience. He even did his first photo shoot in his life. The scriptwriter persuaded the guy to do another one. Gidi also made many new friends on this trip, many of whom, just like before, couldn't share the handsome man to take farewell photos. He was paid well for modeling, and a curious interlocutor asks what the schoolboy plans to spend the money on. Among all the things that the reward could actually be spent on, there was something that deserved to be called the best. And these were gifts for the parents. Gidi bought his mother a first-class scarf, who proudly showed it to everyone. The guy asks the woman why she put on this scarf so early in the morning, because she must be hot, and the thing will wear out so quickly. But she has a different opinion. Since this gift was given to her by her son, she is simply obliged to show off the scarf to everyone and everywhere. She guesses that his father is probably even happier about this, even though he doesn't say. And Gidi asks again with a flattered look. Somewhere else, an enthusiastic voice is heard greeting a boss who raised a son with perfect scores on his entrance exams. The interlocutor notices that Father Gidi has a new watch, and he replies that it's nothing special, but he can't help but brag. The man says that the watch was bought with money his son earned as a model in Italy, and the gas station attendant smiles and jokes respectfully. Gidi continues his meal, and his mother suddenly remembers one thing. Drawing attention to herself, the boy answers. While washing the dishes, the woman asks her son if he remembers Aunt Julia, and he replies that of course, he remembers her. The memories are not pleasant. It was this aunt who, when telling Gidi's mother that he had gained weight again, reminded her to feed him once a day. Angry, which is clearly visible from her appearance, the mother conveys to her son the request of this annoying woman. Could he please study with her child? Gidi is about to agree, starting to say that she will do it since she is her mother's friend, and the sound of ceramics cracking is heard in the kitchen. Noticing the woman's mood, the guy corrects himself, ending by saying that he could, but doesn't want to burden his aunt with paying for tutoring. Gidi vividly imagines this picture, mentally asking her parent if she couldn't find a better reason for refusing. The woman asks another question, suggesting Aunt Minnie as an employer. The high school student remembers her too. She is almost the only friend of my mother's who stood on their side in that unpleasant situation, putting Julia in her place. This woman was very generous, giving Gidi pocket money and reminding Aunt Julia of this during that very conversation. She poked her nose into it like a naughty kitten, asking how she dared to behave so badly in front of the majority shareholder. Gidi says, a little sheepishly, that it's not that he's singling out any of his mother's friends, it's just that Aunt Minnie gave him a lot of pocket money. The boy thinks that being good at studying is equal to a way of showing his son's duty. He is glad that he received the title of the best student in the country. The woman asks if it's true that he doesn't want her to go with him, and the man replies that it's not even prom. Gidi puts on a suit, and his mother asks if it is the same one that was given to her son in Italy. The guy confirms these words. The suit is important at this ceremony. This is what his best friend told him, because suits are a symbol of maturity, and they are the ones who are already on its threshold. Julian led his friend to the question of what first-year students should wear, and he answered without hesitation, suits, of course. The woman looks at her son with skepticism. It is difficult for her to believe these words, because in their time everything was different. Gidi is surprised in turn. Smiling dazzlingly, the guy heads for the exit, promising his mother goodbye that he will call her if he realizes that he will be late. He rides on public transport with an anticipatory and contented smile, thinking about his own. Having reached the right place, Gidi sees that a few people have already gathered nearby. They turn to look at the guy with admiration in their eyes and look at him puzzled. Those who have already noticed the graduate are pestering their companions to also pay attention to the newcomer. And this is all because Gili ends up in a suit alone, among everyone present. The guy looks dejected, his gaze getting heavier with each new word, like who would wear a suit to the entrance ceremony. In Gili's hands, shaking with anger, is a smartphone with an open correspondence with Julian, who continues to mock his friend. The guy thinks that their friendship is over because he is going to kill this crazy trickster. Near the Faculty of Business Administration, voices are heard. Someone asks the interlocutor if Jitty Long has arrived yet. He was supposed to read the freshman pledge, and the angry man tells his partner to call him because the event is about to start. They start squabbling, because how can the head of the department not know the number and appearance of the latter? And the interlocutor parries just as furiously. Seeing people with a poster, the man asks why they want to hang it on the bus, since Jitty left for an internship and did not show up for orientation. To top it all off, the person who was supposed to read the freshman oath was late, and was probably leisurely walking into the building right now. The event organizer gets even angrier, saying, "Let this scoundrel just try not to come." The girl shows her friend something that has aroused her curiosity, and the girl comes closer and turns her interested gaze to the screen. She shows a photo of Jitty in a suit, asking how one can feel the beauty of this person even when not all of his face is visible. The senior girls laugh. One asks the other if he is really their junior comrade, and she expresses hope that this is so, wanting to see him in person. Someone approaches them, starting a polite conversation, and the students break away from their discussion and their lesson. A breathless Jitty asks if the girls are his seniors from the MBA class. There is a silence and the guy says, puzzled or maybe not. The students look very embarrassed, initially answering negatively, but quickly correcting themselves. The guy apologizes for being late, introducing himself and saying that he was assigned to read the freshman oath, to which the girls say that everything is fine. A disgruntled organizer appears nearby, harshly retorting that if a time is set, you must arrive on time. Being late is abnormal. The man asks who he thinks he is, but at the sight of the embarrassed, pleasant smile on the young man's face, he falls silent. He can't help but admire him, because this guy is so damn good looking. A little later, Jitty comes out on stage, solemnly beginning to read the freshman oath to everyone gathered. The man's posture expresses stubbornness, but his words contradict it, so it turns out this guy is better than it seemed. There is a happy expression on the man's face as he says out loud that it is not just better, but much better. They ask him if he really likes this freshman that much, and he answers with a confident aggression that hardly anyone would dislike. Remembering how Jitty justified himself to his elders, the man finds it hard to believe that a person with perfect grades also has an impressive appearance. On top of all that, the cost of the suit is a plus, because one like that would cost no less than 5,000. But it's not clear why he's wearing it, and the man remembers that there were rumors that one heir of a wealthy family came to a party in a tuxedo, but it's hard to believe. He thinks that this guy is probably a rich heir, but an unofficial one, since his face has not yet had time to shine. The man is scared because he might disappear if he behaves disrespectfully with such people, going over in his head everything he said before. He decides to just let it go to save his life, but there's something else. The guy bowed politely, apologizing for missing orientation without contacting the organizer. Jitty says he realized the language internship was a $1 million opportunity, and didn't think about the orientation course at all. The interlocutor replies, puzzled, that orientation is not mandatory. They are not that old-fashioned, someone retorts, and he asks to shut up. The man asks, puzzled, why the boy even decided to talk about the orientation course. Jitty replies that he heard them discussing him loudly, which is how he found the seniors. The young man is embarrassed and apologizes with a remorseful look, but he asks what kind of outfit their dear freshman is wearing. And now it's Jitty's turn to be puzzled. He runs through options in his head that could be the answer. For example, all because he loves to attract attention to himself. But he also imagines how people might talk about him, calling for attention to the strange freshman. And he doesn't like all this at all, because Jitty doesn't want to be a loner at the university. But then a brilliant idea comes into his head, and the guy starts implementing it right away. He says that immediately after the ceremony he will go to an interview for Nasza Strana Sagodnia. The senior student is puzzled and tense. This magazine is the first student magazine in the entire country, and all more or less successful university students dream of getting into it. The organizer thinks about it, but it doesn't surprise him much, because the younger one has an impressive appearance, and the university probably wants to show him off. Meanwhile, Jitty continues, saying that as soon as he received the offer, he immediately began to think seriously. The interlocutor turns to listen. How can you make sure that when readers look at this photo shoot, they immediately think of their university's MBA department, among the students at their country's university, where the best minds are admitted? What clothes are appropriate for his potential department? But this question was stupid, because only one outfit could not disgrace the Faculty of Business Administration: a suit. But then Jitty becomes puzzled, because in his imagination it sounded better than it actually turned out to be. It would have been better if he had told the elder the truth. The same one puts his hand on the freshman's shoulder, addressing him by name after a short pause. The guy responds to the address. The interlocutor, with a shining look and pride in his eyes, suggests calling him elder brother from now on. GD adds the venerable one. The man expresses a wish that all the younger ones were like this one, because today's students don't have the spirit of the university, and the interlocutor is puzzled. Sometime later, GD comes to his friend's shop, which is filled with the aforementioned laughter. Julian repeats the words he said to his elder and continues to laugh, while his interlocutor asks for the terminal to pay for everything with his head. After all, he started all this himself, and he says that he didn't think that Doug would actually fall for it. How can he believe such nonsense? Julian switches gears, asking how yesterday's shoot went, and Giddy follows suit, revisiting the day's events. The guy asks to take another picture. His cheeks are already flushed with excitement, and the air around him is heating up. Seeing Giddy pretending to read a book, the photographer alerts him to the perfect atmosphere, but he needs one more shot. The assistant pulls his colleague away from the model, asking him to stop because they still need to interview the guy, but he resists. He still isn't satisfied. GD answers his friend's question that everything went well, and on top of that, he was given something. The guy shows the cashier a thick stack of papers with sticky notes, and the cashier asks what it is. The senior hands the freshman this kippa, saying that without someone like him, he would not have gotten all this. GD politely thanks him. A freshman shares with a friend that he needs to change his curriculum to include guitar lessons, and the friend asks why. GD asks again, saying that everyone's dream is to travel around the country in jeans and with an acoustic guitar on their back. And in his free time, he will sit on the campus lawn, take out his guitar and open a can of beer. Julian, feigning a smile, grunts vaguely. He turns away, diving into a nearby box, saying that when he listens to his friend, a certain association comes to mind. Julian sprays Giddy with a spray bottle, commanding the horrible-tasting relic from 88 to emerge from his best friend's body. The guy asks if his interlocutor really thinks that he doesn't have such old relatives in his family. That would be disrespectful to them. Julian replies that the biggest disrespect is his friend's style. Why did he even dress like that? And Giddy retorts by laying everything out on the shelves. The cashier says that if he were his mother, he would cry every time because of this, and his own mother appears behind him, saying that this is what she wants. She asks her son if he thinks she's paying him twice as much to do nothing, and Giddy greets his aunt respectfully. As she leaves, she says that, by the way, her son's mother bought this outfit for his friend, and tells him to find out the details before saying anything. Julian, smiling sweetly, says he thought it was avant-garde, and Giddy gives the cashier the finger with a smile in return. Meanwhile, interesting rumors reach Signor's office in France. Tim Jones is shouted at, angrily asked what he is talking about, how he can go to another country. Paris Fashion Week is just around the corner, and he suddenly decides to make such a stupid decision. The girl behind the speaker is crying. What's wrong with him? He only recently got out of the crisis, and now this. Does he really think that finding a model there will be so easy? The man puts on his glasses as silently as he had been before. Finally, he speaks up, saying that this is the very reason why he is flying there himself. After all, it is in this country that his muse, depicted on the cover of one of the student magazines, is located, the GD himself. A week ago, terrible screams were heard throughout the office, and a blond man said that Tim Jones had completely lost his mind. A man's fist meets the table, filling the space with a characteristic roar. But the reason was clear, because their chief designer had been in a creative crisis for more than a month, and this had never happened to him before. There are several cups on the table, at the bottom of which only traces of the drink that filled them previously are visible. Tim leans back in his chair in sadness, because now it's all over. No matter how much coffee he drinks, inspiration doesn't come. Whereas before, even just the aroma from a cup of coffee in this coffee shop inspired him, now this drink has become a common remedy for drowsiness. At such moments, a man envies Mr. Rockerbelt. He recalls how the aforementioned man began to tremble all over after drinking the cup, and Tim himself asked him if it was really that tasty. He, with eyes glowing with excitement, begins to talk about what happens when he imagines his muse drinking this wonderful drink. His inspiration returns, and Rockerbelt declares that he urgently needs to pick up a paintbrush. Tim believes that he is addicted to drugs. He wonders if having a muse is so wonderful, smiling, because it's vulgar. He's not going to become the same designer. At the moment, tears of annoyance are running down the man's cheeks because he envies his creative colleague. He begins to wave his limbs chaotically, demanding the same muse for himself, and a girl passing by shows her mother the madman. Tim suddenly stops hysterically when he hears an excited voice nearby expressing bewilderment at the use of models from this race. One of the girls says that she finds this suit incredibly comfortable, and the other is thinking about buying one for her loved one. The man's hand rests on the back of the chair, helping himself to maintain balance. Tim takes a peek, noting that the power of fashion lies in this, in making viewers want to wear it. And then the man's eye closest to the glossy page widens as he realizes what these women were talking about. The office staff look at their interlocutor with stunned glances, having first turned sharply towards him. The man remarks that he has arrived just in time, but is told no, whatever, it can wait. An inspired Tim orders a list of all the male models from a certain country who have appeared in recent magazines to be prepared for him for tomorrow, and he also forbids anyone to come to him. Because the man wants to concentrate as much as possible, the blonde says. Again, he does what he wants. The girl puts her hand on her colleague's shoulder and soothingly suggests allowing this, since this is not the first time something like this has happened. She also notices that when Tim Jones gets that childish, delighted gleam in his eyes, no one can stop him. The designer sits locked in his office all day long, without showing his nose outside. Deep night falls, revealing its bright face to the city, but the light continues to burn in the office windows. The pencil falls sharply onto the sheet of sketches, thrown with a careless movement of the hand. The office is filled with triumphant laughter. Tim screams, throwing his hands up in the air, carried away by his own enthusiasm, finally succeeding in achieving what he wanted. This inspiration came like madness from just one thought, and the designer is going to find the man from the cover at any cost. The woman sits cross-legged in a chair, studying something on a tablet with a satisfied smile. She is reminded that she always grumbled that if she sat with her legs crossed, her spine would become curved, and her gaze would move away from the screen and onto her interlocutor. Jyoti, holding a bouquet of flowers in her hand, asks why Aunt Minnie is now sitting cross-legged. The woman exclaims joyfully upon seeing the boy and calls him her son, her face expressing happiness. She says that after 40 you can live the way you want, and Jyoti gently denies it, saying that the bouquet is a gift for a promotion. Smiling brightly, the guy says that Minnie looks too young for her age. The woman is embarrassed, reluctantly retorting. She asks if he is flattering her because she is the largest shareholder, and Jyoti thinks that these words can hardly be called flattery. Thinking back, he thinks that the one who supported him the most and preserved the remnants of his self-respect was this very woman. While setting up the camera for a photo, Minnie reminds him of her words about how the guy would become more attractive if he lost weight, and he agrees. The woman hands the package to her son, saying that it contains a gift for the boy's admission to university. Jyoti thanks her mother's friend with a happy smile on her lips and puts her hand inside the bag, wanting to see its contents. Suddenly, his expression becomes puzzled, and the guy asks if he can return the bouquet he gave her and buy something else. Smiling innocently, the woman asks why he decided to change his mind. Jyoti, holding her gift, so shiny and chic, says that she considers it too expensive. The woman admires him, not expecting that her son even knows about bags, because she thought that he was not interested in fashion. The guy replies that he doesn't really know much about fashion, but the logo on the bag often appears in the TV series his mother watches. Minnie asks the guy not to worry because it is a fake that she bought at the market for a small price. Jyoti breathes a sigh of relief. The woman is amazed at the student's naivety, joking and parrying her own words. The bag is real. There is even a certificate in it. Giddy flushes, and Minnie says she finds the brand value interesting and asks if the boy thinks so. Sometimes it symbolizes sincerity in itself, recalling the advertisement that encourages parents to express their feelings with a set of red ginseng, and sometimes it increases the price of ordinary things many times over. So the insulating tape that became a bracelet began to sell for several times more. Brands used to be a guarantee of product quality, but now hardly anyone thinks about it when making a purchase. Nowadays, the price of an item is increased purely because of the brand logo, which is akin to the Midas touch. Jyoti starts to laugh nervously, agreeing out loud, but wondering inwardly why the woman would even think of that. Minnie, meanwhile, turns to the guy, and he falls silent, involuntarily tensing up. She asks thoughtfully why she was only now able to discern the Midas touch in her interlocutor. Is it because of her heavy weight that the woman couldn't see this in her son, not noticing the potential? She considers this very strange. The freshman answers puzzledly, plastering a nervous smile on his face, saying that studying can change a person dramatically. But looking at her piercing eyes, the question involuntarily creeps into his head. Does this woman really know about his change by reboot? The boy tensely clenches his fist, and Minnie, meanwhile, turns to him again. His fears prove unfounded when the woman asks him if he would like to quit his studies to work for his aunt's company. Minnie says that it is rare to meet a person with such appearance and such achievements as Jyoti. He is puzzled. She's afraid that he might be poached by another company. But the guy, laughing nervously, notes that he just went through the entrance ceremony, and he suggests that they talk about tutoring Gittith, Minnie's daughter, and clarifies the desired subject and the final goal. The guy mentally lets out a long sigh of relief, reassuring himself that this woman couldn't possibly know about the reboot. Minnie confirms the student's words, adding that her daughter had never before scored above 20 points in English. Gittith asks if Minnie has hired tutors before, and Minnie sighs heavily, saying that none of them lasted longer than a month. This girl neglects to do her homework and hardly listens to teachers, and doesn't even follow the schedule. Teachers are the first to give in. Gittith grew up thinking she was allowed to do whatever she wanted because of her mother's position. The boy finds it hard to believe that this pure child, who played Pokemon until 6th grade, is capable of behaving like this. Smiling, he asks Minnie to trust him, promising to show the power of the best score on the English exam. The woman is delighted. This is encouraging. She is going to trust the student, and immediately after that suggests moving on to the issue of paying for tutoring. The guy, pretending to be very serious, says that if Minnie pays him too much, he will never show his face to her again. The woman smiles sweetly, waving off her interlocutor with the words, "Oh, come on. Has anything like that ever happened before?" Sometime later, Jitty and Minnie come to the woman's home, and she presses the appropriate command on the intercom panel. She is greeted by a servant who politely says, "Welcome home, madam," and the businesswoman gets straight to the point, asking where her daughter is. The answer is that the young lady is in her room, and the hostess goes straight there and then knocks on the door. After the knock, there follows a gentle address to the daughter and a polite question whether she is asleep. Jidit doesn't answer, lying on her bed in pitch darkness, staring blankly at her smartphone screen. Minnie knows her daughter's nature very well, so she continues by saying that she has arranged an English tutor today. The girl's gaze does not change until a familiar name reaches her ears, causing her eyes to involuntarily open wide. Giddy remembers how much fun she had playing Pokemon with this funny guy named Giddy. Minnie, on the other side of her daughter's door, reaches for the handle, but hesitates halfway. Her look expresses annoyance as the woman turns to leave, saying what right she has to be a mother. But then something incredible happens. A click is heard behind the businesswoman, and the door to Giddith's room opens. Minnie's gaze becomes surprised. The girl opens it slightly so that only part of her face is visible, and asks shyly if it is true that she will see her older bear brother next week. The city's shopping center is busier than usual on Saturday. Women turn around and look at the rare guests of such places, unable to take their eyes off the lovers. The guy, looking self-confident, curses, asking why he should be walking around the mall with his companion on such a beautiful day. The one who was mentioned asks with a sweet smile what the point of having friends is then, and the interlocutor mercilessly and sarcastically retorts, "Is it true?" After this, a satisfied smile appears on his face, and he promises to buy his friend everything he wants. But all this generosity has a limit. The guy asks his interlocutor what made him change his style, and he replies that there were various reasons. He shows his smartphone to his friend, saying that this was the deciding factor, and he is surprised. In the photo of Giddy, and the comments underneath it are quite unflattering. Julian, trying not to laugh, asks what it is. The interlocutor tells him that he only downloaded the app yesterday and saw this. He knew that they were taking pictures of him, but he didn't think that he would become an icon of terrible style. Thanks to this, Giddy actually made quite a few friends in his department. Memories of acquaintances pop up before his eyes. Julian asks in surprise why his friend chose this particular shopping center, since there are many affordable brands in other places. Giddy looks around the crowd as if trying to convince himself of something and answers. He believes that everything becomes luxurious when he wears it. Julian smiles, calling his friend an extremely self-confident person. Giddy remembers a conversation with Aunt Minnie and her words about how she only just noticed that he had the Midas touch. He thinks that if this woman was telling the truth, then he will have a chance to repay the favor he did 3 years ago. The man, with a worried expression on his face, asks the person on the other end of the line in confusion if he is really leaving. This man's name is Doc Chaplin, and he is the owner of a store in the mall. He asks how he can announce his departure so suddenly. The spring collection was just released today, but the interviewee doesn't care, because he hasn't been paid his salary for 3 months. Looking at the screen of the smartphone lying on the tabletop, he sighs heavily and wonders why he is the only one who fails. And this is despite the fact that there are an incredible number of people in this place, at whom he is looking right now, heavily lowered into the seat. The shop owner looks at the scene with a dull look, dejectedly thinking that he did everything he could. He has no equal in fashion. He even took out loans to hire attractive models. The man even tried to pay brokers to increase the rating of his store, but still came to what he has now. In the end, he was left with nothing. No money for wages, no money to buy goods for the next day. Doc swears from hopelessness and frustration. The man leans back in his chair and throws his head back, looking at the hand that got him to where he is today. He clenches his fist sharply the next moment, thinking that it's time to give up, because, in his opinion, 3 years of business in this business is a long time. In this world, some are born to succeed, while others will never achieve it under any circumstances, he reminds himself. Just look at the people. Even if this low-end shopping mall has succeeded, it means there are stores that no one will help. The man bursts into nervous laughter, saying out loud that it seems his own store is one of them. And yet he is sorry to leave so simply the business in which he has invested years. And at that very moment, Doc's gaze is drawn to a strangely dressed boy, who turns his own gaze on him. And this boy is heading towards the man, quickly continuing to close the distance, hope reflected on his face. There's a glint in his eyes that Doc hasn't seen in a long time, and he calls the owner by name, adding Big Bro, reminding him of his own name. 3 years ago, a frustrated and nervous voice was heard in the shopping center, telling you that this is not how things should be done. Doc states that the clothing store is not a joke. He tells his stupid interlocutor, asking if he understood. Still unchanged, Giddy, straightening up as much as possible, replies that he understood perfectly. Doc praises Junior, saying that when he opens the second store, he will make him manager, handing him a can of soda. Giddy asks if the bro can make a video of himself working on a certain app. He says yes, and starts filming. Doc thinks that this guy is very thoughtful, because he has already chosen his path and his training. This is very impressive. But what is reboot? Giddy laughs nervously, realizing that the elder one got something wrong, but he still considers him a good bro. In the present, Doc says that it was a long time ago. He was very worried when the guy, who was walking steadily, suddenly disappeared somewhere. But he can't believe his eyes. Is it really that same GD who is standing in front of him now? He's laughing awkwardly, because he did it to gain a skill. The guy apologizes for his behavior and asks if he can look at the clothes. The bro is just glad that he finally has a client. The man leads the visitor deeper into the store, showing him the latest arrivals. GD asks his friend's opinion. He looks at the thing thoughtfully, saying that he finds it very cool. With white sneakers, it would be perfect, and he asks the owner if he has white sneakers. Doc perks up, promising to bring them right now. He looks at the atmosphere around these young people with bewilderment, and they continue to chatter tirelessly. When the white sneakers arrive, GD immediately puts them on to try them on with her outfit, and the shoes fit perfectly. Putting on the shirt, the guy smiles and fastens the cuffs, and those around him remark on how well the item looks on him. Doc looks confused. This guy's clothes look like they came from a luxury store. Giddy asks about his appearance. Julian reluctantly admits that he is right, and Giddy is asked if that photo shoot was a scam. The guy thinks about it, remembering. GD tells his bro that he's taking the kit, and he comes up with a plan that could possibly be his last chance. Doc asks his junior if he can help him out by doing him a favor. The boy looks surprised. GD asks a little later, clarifying when his brother brought him up to speed, which means he is being offered to become a model for this store. Doc begs the younger one, asking to do it for just 1 hour, but corrects himself, believing that even 30 minutes should be more than enough. GD smiles sweetly, saying that after the time the man spent on him 3 years ago, he simply has to help him. Doc is about to pay the guy before he changes his mind, but the guy, smiling puzzledly, gently retorts that he doesn't owe him anything. But the man still goes to get his wallet and returns with the words that he considers it necessary to be honest. But when the attention of the entire trio turns to the open wallet, there is almost no money there, and an awkward silence reigns. Doc starts crying, asking the younger one not to leave. He is even ready to borrow money to pay him. He reminds him of his words. A man's hand carries 2 bags filled to the brim with clothes. Giddy looks at them puzzled, saying that even though Doc gave him a discount, he still feels like he got too much. Julian is also dressed up. A friend asks what's wrong with his appearance, and he replies that he now has the concept of a rich lady sweeping everything in the store. When else if not now? GD still thinks it's unfair because he went shopping but was able to earn money. Julian says that this is how he has felt around his friend for the past 7 years, and his friend asks why. The guy gives an example of how in elementary school he would get a scoop of ice cream on top just for being pretty, and a free drink at a barbecue restaurant. Julian is surprised, saying he didn't know it was a special treat. He thought he was just lucky with generous hosts. Giddy is amazed. The guy reminds him that he gets everything from birth, so it's all obvious. And his interlocutor gets irritated, calling Julian the reason. In any case, this whole conversation awakens the young man's appetite, and he asks his friend to feed him. The guy sighs heavily. Suddenly, a painfully familiar voice is heard nearby, calling the latter by name, and his whole body tenses. A female voice speaks. It really is Gidi, and there is a smile and pretense in it. She notices that many years have passed, and the guys turn around. Julian doesn't know this woman. He asks his friend who she is. Grimacing, he asks what right she has to greet Gidi at all. With a sweet smile, the interlocutor introduces herself, reminding him of her name, Bobby, and says that they went to high school together. Uninvited memories involuntarily surface in my memory. Appearing before my eyes, Gidi confessed his love to her, and the girl rudely rejected him. She not only tore open the envelope containing the love letter and laughed at the sender, but also publicly called him a nerd, and the confession disgusting. Now the woman standing in front of him reminds him that he used to love her, and the guy replies that of course he remembers her, and she is happy. Gidi asks how she recognized him, and Bobby replies that he is famous on social media as the boy next door. Julian's gaze hardens. The guy thinks about the commercialism of this woman, because now she admits that she knows him, when Gidi is famous and handsome. And this is after she spread nasty rumors because she was embarrassed by the confession, and then moved to another area because she couldn't take it anymore. Bobby chuckles lightly, and then starts talking, wanting to suggest something since they had just met by chance anyway. She asks her interlocutor, feigning embarrassment and innocence, if he would like to have coffee with her. There is a moment of silence as Gidi tries to control her racing heart, and finally, his lips stretch into a calm and restrained smile. He apologizes to the woman standing across from him, and even this single word is enough for her to understand everything. Bobby is puzzled. Smiling brightly, Gidi says that he is a bit busy right now, so he thinks he won't be able to, and turns around, saying goodbye to leave. The girl moves forward, asking her interlocutor to wait, and at least offering to exchange contacts. The answer is a cold and categorical no, and Bobby immediately asks why, looking stunned. Gidi pauses to turn around and give the girl an indifferent look, and his friend follows suit, offering support. His words cut mercilessly when Gidi replies that the girl should understand the reason better than anyone else. Before leaving, the guy gives his interlocutor a condescending smile and says that he was very pleased to see her. He adds that she should take care of herself, and Julian asks why she would wish such a thing on someone who treated you so meanly. GD replies that the girl is still his former classmate from middle school, and the girl clenches her fists in anger. Trembling, she asks if he really thinks she's hitting on him, and if he's walking around with a servant like he's some kind of prince. Bobby speaks furiously, as if cursing that the boy's handsome face will not stay with him forever. She looks embittered. She calls her interlocutor an idiot, and his eyes widen in shock and surprise. Julian, on the other hand, looks calm and speaks, addressing his friend as a prince. His stomach is already growling. They need to hurry to the ball. GD jumps on the back of his interlocutor, and he runs away laughing, leaving the bewildered girl in bewilderment. She watches the departing young men with confusion, hearing the distant neighing of Julian's horse. They sit in the diner for quite a long time, because dusk is already slowly beginning to fall on the city. Giddy guesses that after such a face-to-face refusal, Bobby will most likely never speak to him again. Julian doesn't think it's a big loss, noting that his friend looked great today, and asking why he never dressed like that before. Giddy thinks, assuming that if Bobby had apologized to him, he would probably be sitting with her in some cafe right now. He admits that he still feels empty inside and is convinced that first love really hurts. Julian decides to cheer up his friend by saying that he knows why he feels empty inside, and hands Giddy a piece of meat because his stomach is empty. The guy takes the slice and, chewing it while Julian questions him, admits that he was not so far from the truth. Giddy allows his friend to eat as much as he wants because he received money from his brother today, and his brother supports him, planning to eat until he is full. An hour later, the waiter brings a check for an impressive amount, and Giddy calls his friend a pig, but he retorts that he himself has eaten enough. The promoter hands out wet wipes to passers-by with an offer to visit the Church of the Ancestors, because they love them and will help them rise no matter what. The girl examines the packaging, wondering what kind of sect it is and whether there are really believers there, or if they are just swimming in money. She is politely called out to and turns around, saying that she already has a pack of wet wipes, but she is wrong. A handsome man expresses his opinion that this style would look better with her hair down, as she herself thinks. The girl is embarrassed, and at first looks surprised, and then shyly covers herself with her hands, saying that she believes. The young man lets out a heavy sigh. He looks puzzled. It is obvious that something is weighing on him. GD puts her hand to her forehead, thinking she's going crazy as this is the 5th time she's given unsolicited style advice to strangers. While he was promoting his bro's shop, he unknowingly unlocked a new skill, District Hipster, by fulfilling 2 conditions. His sense of style has become so refined that he is already shaking with the desire to criticize the style of almost the first person he meets. GD asks himself to calm down, fearing that he might get to the seniors in this way. He needs to pull himself together. Today is the day of registration for clubs of interest, so it is necessary to come to one's senses as soon as possible. Approaching the right door, the guy knocks. He enters the office with a good-natured smile, apologizing and saying that he wants to sign up for one of the clubs. A very funny picture comes to his attention. His eldest is lying on the sofa, sprawled out and sleeping, snoring sweetly. The senior student opens his eyes, recognizing the person in front of him, and asking what brought his younger friend to this sleepy kingdom. GD's gaze becomes surprised. He freezes in the doorway, asking if his brother is sick. He softly retorts with an unperturbed look. He didn't get sick, he just lay down to rest for a while. Then GD expresses his own intention, saying that he came to get the application form to join the club, and the other person's eyes widen. The student jumps up with a heart-rending cry, adding just one word to it, clubs, and the interlocutor is shocked. The senior student perks up, throwing the appropriate form down on the table with a loud bang and starting to list the clubs that are available. A smile appears on his lips, and the man asks which club their youngest, their dear youngest, would deign to join. Smiling awkwardly, GD sits at attention and politely asks to enroll him in the tennis club. The senior praises the freshman's choice. The guy doesn't understand why the student suddenly became so energetic, and he takes a photo of the application form. Smiling contentedly, the older comrade asks if GD himself knows how much the professors at their university are looking at him. He continues, adding that the dean was delighted after his photo shoot for the magazine, which started a competition between the professors. The man smiles, as if anticipating his silent interlocutor's question about what kind of competition has begun. And then he immediately replies that it was to drag such a valuable student into his club. And he himself got caught in the crossfire. They put pressure on him. They ask why he hasn't come yet, and the senior student was thinking about how to lure the freshman into his club. But he just went and came. He asks GD to call him today when he is free, and to try to be wary of those professors he did not choose. The boy thinks about how professors usually become mentors and wonders if he is really that important. Later, in a business administration class, the professor expresses hope that he will join his club in the 2nd semester. During an economics class, the professor, citing a mistake, suggests taking advantage of the moment and thinking about joining his club. During lunch in the cafeteria, the professor in charge of the football club expresses annoyance because he thought that the first-year student had the face of a football fan. Thus, the guy spent the whole day under the watchful eye and opaque hints of the curators of the interest club. The senior student smiles, rejoicing in his rightness and confirming it with words. After all, he said that this way he will have to suffer the whole semester. GD says it was even more intense than when he played the dating sim, and his interviewer is amazed at his versatility. They throw him a racket, saying that it is his, and that he shouldn't worry, since everything was paid for by the graduates. The guy looks at the object in surprise. The older comrade steps forward, leading the younger one behind him, a smile on his lips, and GD looks like he still doesn't understand what to do. As they step outside, the wind rustles the leaves, blowing the young ones off the trees, revealing tennis courts. A senior student congratulates a freshman on joining his club and politely says welcome. Happy and enthusiastic students play tennis, clearly enjoying the process, while observers watch. GD watches the movement of the nearest ball, trying to track it, but it doesn't always work out, because the players are very skilled. The tennis player's hand deftly tosses the ball into the air, and from a certain angle it blocks the sun, like a small moon. With perfect timing, the player strikes the descending ball, applying enough force to send it towards the opponent. GD watches the scene with eyes shining with admiration, and his guide makes a brief comment on what he has just seen. For the first-year student, all these words are still incomprehensible, and an expression of deep confusion appears on his face. And while the interlocutor replies that he will understand after he plays a couple of times, the students notice a newcomer on the tennis court. One of the players notices that Jules has brought GD along with him, and the senior greets the tennis players in return. The second one is surprised, asking in surprise if he really managed to bring their excellent student. GD is surprised to himself. They are glad that they have the guy. About an hour later, Jules turns to his puzzled interlocutor, inviting him to look at how diligently the newcomer is studying. The man's hand throws a small ball up into the air for the umpteenth time, perfecting the movement. GD's eyes are full of determination as he prepares his racket for the upcoming shot, perfecting this technique as well. But even after so many minutes and despite the diligence of the attempts, there is no particular progress, and the ball once again falls to the ground. The seniors look puzzled, knowing full well that this sport is not suitable for this guy, and he chuckles sheepishly. A disappointed sigh echoes across the tennis court, rising up and disappearing into the air. GD collects the balls with a frustrated look, knowing full well that things are going badly. He has only held a racket in his hand once before, and this happened at school. And despite the fact that the senior students encourage him, his skills are completely below their praise. The boy straightens up to his full height, watching other students play on the nearby court, and thinks that he would like to do the same. The ball bounces into the air, and a moment later a racket strikes it with precision and skill, sending it towards enemy territory. Looking at this spectacle and remembering his mistakes, the guy starts to feel sick. It seems like tennis will haunt him in his nightmares. But through this thickness, a disturbing thought breaks into his mind. Should he unlock a skill that could help him right now? If he did, the Prince of Tennis could easily help him become better right now. The first condition for unlocking has already been met, since he has already held the tennis racket, and the second is 100 draws. It can be done quickly if you use the shortcut that GD can clearly imagine, but is it worth it? As soon as he starts thinking about it, he feels uneasy and wonders why. Barely audible footsteps are heard from behind, but the first-year student, lost in thought, does not hear them at all. Jules asks with a good-natured grin what his little brother is thinking about so deeply, and he flinches in surprise. Embarrassed, he apologizes to his interlocutor. He is surprised and puzzled, asking why these words of apology. GD admits that he will fail his school grade, so now he is a real burden for the tennis club. He has no skills. Jules looks at his interlocutor silently for a while, after which he bursts into laughter. Taking the ball in his hand, he says that he doesn't see anything wrong with it, because such an excellent student probably did nothing but study all the time. It was not for nothing that the questionnaire did not ask to indicate the level, because the main thing is to have fun, and not to get hung up on whether you are good or bad. Jules says that children today are so accustomed to competition that they consider even the slightest lag a disaster, but this is not so. After all, the truly happy ones in the end are those who enjoy the process, and at that very moment, hope flashes in GD's eyes. Jules offers himself as a partner if he gets tired of hitting serves from the machine, but his interlocutor categorically refuses. Later, GD is met at Minnie's house and is asked to wait a little while since GD has not arrived yet. The woman asks him what he would like to drink for now, coffee or soda, and the guy chooses the latter. The student smiled sheepishly. He knew that Aunt Minnie was successful, but he couldn't even imagine that she had a personal housekeeper. Meanwhile, a cry calling for mom is heard from the side, and the woman and the guy turn their astonished gazes in his direction. Taking off her shoes as she walked and smiling, Judith solemnly announced that she had returned home. Unceremoniously sending her shoes flying, the girl asks with an air of anticipation where her older bear brother is. The housekeeper gently reminds the young housewife that she shouldn't throw things around and says that her tutor has already arrived. GD waves his hand to the schoolgirl in a friendly manner, saying that they haven't seen each other for a long time, and she looks at him with an uncomprehending look. It takes her a few seconds to realize who is in front of her, and she points her finger at the person she is talking to, saying that she has remembered. She calls GD her mother's secret boyfriend, and the housekeeper turns a frightened look to the young man, who also becomes confused for a few moments. Jidit asks seriously if he really thought she wouldn't recognize him. But it was easy since he was against the wallpaper of his mother's phone. The girl asks why he is here, because her older bear brother was supposed to come to her, and Jiddy tries to explain everything. The schoolgirl is ruthless. She believes that the guy used his good looks to seduce her mother and become a tutor. She turns to leave and grunts in displeasure, and then says that she shouldn't have come earlier. The housekeeper tries to stop her. Jiddy starts to get really annoyed, saying that her mother didn't keep her promise, so why should she keep hers? And then the guy can't stand it. Turning to the girl in an ominous tone and calling her a pink piglet, she freezes, not believing her ears. He continues, asking where she learned such bad manners, and the girl's eyes widen. A memory flashes before his eyes of Giddy calling him Piglet, frowning in displeasure and grabbing him by the clothes. He sat on the phone, not paying attention to her, and Jidit, angry, demanded that the boy play with her. Minnie sheepishly apologizes to Jiddy's mother, saying that she hasn't scolded her daughter properly in a long time, and that she continues to tease him, but his mother allows it. But Minnie didn't do this on purpose, because it was enough for her that her child was healthy, unlike her husband. Jiddy asks the girl to wait, promising to play with her after he unlocks the skill. She looks unhappy. When her anger boils over, Gidit runs even closer to the boy and throws his phone with all her might, knocking it out of his hands. The force is so impressive that the smartphone not only flies towards the window, but also flies out, breaking through the glass. Jidit screams in displeasure, demanding that he play with her right now. And during this time he is not allowed to use the phone. The guy gets angry. The mothers sitting nearby tense up and become puzzled as they see the scene unfolding before them. Jiddy slaps his hand loudly on his knee, telling the pink piglet in a stern voice to keep his hands to himself. He continues, saying that you can't just throw away other people's phones, and the girl, calling her interlocutor a beggar, tells him to buy a new one. He calls Gidith's manners terrible and hits his hand, making an angry face and thereby frightening the girl. She runs away, and Jiddy rushes after the little troublemaker, telling her to come back, and she squeals, asking him for forgiveness. The boy's mother looks at what is happening with bewilderment, asking either her interlocutor or a rhetorical question whether she should intervene. She still answers, believing that this is unnecessary, since Jiddy is correcting the girl's behavior for the adults. In the present, the guy hits one hand against the other, imitating his past self, but the result is not the same. Now that he has lost weight, the sound is no longer audible, but the girl still remembers, taking the appropriate pose and looking at her interlocutor with a puzzled look. The housekeeper looks frightened when she sees this picture and hears the accompanying conversations, literally clutching her heart. Jiddy notes to himself that if the girl didn't even know he had lost weight, it really proves that she doesn't communicate with her mother. Now he can understand perfectly the expression on Aunt Minnie's face then. The guy wonders what might happen to a child who has no friends after she stops communicating even with her family. Switching to a calm tone, Jiddy allows the schoolgirl to lower her hands. He continues by saying that he learned everything from Aunt Minnie, and asks why the girl has been acting so rudely towards her lately. Jidit snaps back, asking in an angry tone what business it is of his, and telling him not to interfere in their family affairs. Jiddy speaks in a calm but ominous tone, countering her interlocutor's words with a clarifying question about whether she really wants this. The girl gives in to the student's pressure, lowering her head, and a puzzled look appears on his face, and he softens, saying that this is not why he came. He didn't come to scold her, but to help, adding that it must have been hard for the girl all this time. Minnie was already busy, and now, after the promotion, her daughter would be lucky if she could see her at least on weekends. Tears welled up in her eyes. Jiddy asks her interlocutor not to worry, promising to come once a week. She cannot believe her happiness, and the housekeeper eavesdrops. She can't believe that this young man was able to turn the stubborn young lady into an obedient lamb in an instant. A little later, the phone rings in Deputy Director Minnie's office, and a woman picks up the receiver. She can't believe that her daughter has undergone such a colossal change, so she reflexively asks again. And the housekeeper happily repeats that after her tutor left, Gidit began to repeat everything over and over again. Only this man began his lessons with the most basic conversational phrases, and the woman asks if this is normal, and her interlocutor confirms, and asks not to worry, because this guy is the best student, studying at the best university. Minnie allows the woman to rest. As she disconnects, she remembers her daughter approaching her when she was younger and asking her to come to a school performance. And a few years later she wanted to say something, but she stopped herself, realizing that her mother was tired after work. In the end, everything turned inside out, and took on a completely different meaning in the eyes of the daughter. It began to seem to her that the problem was not at all about work, but that she was tired of Jidith, which she had said once. After these words, the door not only to her daughter's room, but also to her heart was locked, because she thought that Minnie did not understand her at all. The woman, sitting in her office chair, thinks that if she had only known, she would have called her son much, much earlier. And glancing at the expensive bag, which bears the logo of a famous brand, Minnie, smiling bitterly, says, "See you tomorrow." Green leaves fly into the air as the count rises, bringing the number of draws to 97. Here comes a new tennis ball flying towards us, followed by the 98th blow. The next one seems easier to hit, and it becomes the 99th, bringing the player closer to his next target. And the last blow, which is the 100th, is also decisive, because the second condition for obtaining the skill is fulfilled. GD hits it with a fury, as if his whole life depended on it. The strike is twisted, causing the ball to fly far. The guy's look is determined. He can now fully acquire the coveted skill. But does he need it? He's called the Prince of Tennis, and one day the little prince said, "We're just not there yet." The men's hands hold a notepad and a simple pencil in their fingers, and Jidi is checking her charge's homework. It turned out that Jidit knows quite a lot of complex words and answers simple questions well, which is an indicator that the girl is not stupid. He recalls a schoolgirl's request that the boy simply pretend to work, even though she doesn't know how much her mother pays him. Jidi asks why she is asking him this, and she replies that her mother doesn't care at all what grades her daughter gets. The girl remembers the woman's words when she gets a bad grade. She doesn't yell at her or scold her. She just asks her to try better next time. The interviewer doesn't want to make his aunt look bad, so he asks if Gidit knows how many kids are jealous that she has such a cool mom. But ordinary mothers cook delicious food for their children when they bring home good grades, and if they get bad ones, they yell at them and then sit down and study together. When Jida told her mother about this, she only praised her with one word for the fact that her daughter got the highest score in mathematics. But mom is busy now. She devotes time to her daughter, offering money so that she can have fun with her friends. The girl confesses to her tutor that she didn't even have friends back then, and he bashfully covers himself with his hand, mentally scolding Aunt Minnie. He asks his interlocutor if she knows why she always ate organic food when she came to their home, and she replies that she doesn't remember. The guy says that her mother cooked for her because the girl had health problems. Jidit can't contain her shock. And that's not all. She even rummaged through the Long family's refrigerator, remembering the almost duel-like fight that took place that day between the mothers. A soft smile appears on Jiddy's lips as he confirms his words. That's how it was. He said it because the girl might not know it. The guy adds that Aunt Minnie is not a person who can express such things correctly. He wants to know, understands, and this is the interlocutor. In fact, no matter what he says about this woman's feelings, all these words will sound like a request to understand her feelings. But this is not how it is resolved. The main thing now is to understand Gidit's feelings and fill her emotional gaps. A notification sound is heard. The guy looks at the smartphone. This is an announcement about a friendly match between the business and economics departments today, at 15 o'clock on the campus tennis court. A familiar voice is heard, the owner of which attracts attention to himself, additionally raising his hand up, and calls Jiddy. Jules asks with a smile on his face if the freshman is skipping classes, and he, returning the smile, replies that they were cancelled. Jidi turns to the spectator stands, noting that there are unusually many people gathered today. Have everyone's classes been cancelled? Jules assumes that they all ran away to see him, because someone like him, a handsome straight-A student, is like an albino gorilla in a zoo. The older comrade says that someone from the crowd is even drawing him, and Jidi, surprised by the atypical comparison, asks where this person is. Someone behind him catches Jules' attention, asking in an arrogant tone if he really didn't screw up this time. This guy is on the economics team. Senior Jidi replies that he didn't merge, he didn't come because of a hangover, and his opponent says that such an excuse is typical for his faculty. The first-year student, looking at what is happening, is convinced that the feud between these two faculties is not a rumor, but still politely clarifies. The stranger from the economics department growls, "Is he really laughing? After he became the best since entering? The whole world seems funny to him." Jidi wants to answer his interlocutor sharply and rudely, asking what he is even talking about, but he successfully and in time pulls himself together. Putting on an innocent smile, the guy asks if he really has the honor of speaking to someone who came in second in terms of passing scores during the admission process. Meanwhile, Jules tells his opponent to take his racket and go out, and he, with a condescending look, suggests that they compete differently now. He suggests that not they play, but the best first-year students in their department, deliberately emphasizing their places in the admissions process based on points. Jules says it would be fun, but will Jidi be able to handle it, since he hasn't played tennis for even a month? The opponent is surprised at first, but still thinks the situation is ideal. He says that their number 2 is also a complete newbie, and Jules is indignant, noting the dexterity with which he twirls his racket with his fingers. They tell him that you can turn the pen even when you are a bad student, and they ask Jidi not to be too nervous, because no one is forcing him to win. They offer him to simply entertain the senior students, and the guy, not at all nervous, agrees to these conditions with a friendly smile. He thinks that he was just about to try out a few moves after gaining a new skill. The setup is really perfect for him. The opponents shake hands, and one of them suggests doing without formalities, since they are the same age. Jidi is mentally amazed at the impudence. The opponent adds that he really does find him annoyingly handsome, and finds it hard to believe that he was passed by such a person. He continues by saying that Jidi is not the best in studies, but just lucky, and he, smiling dazzlingly, agrees with these words. Seeing his opponent's anger, the guy continues to smile sweetly. thinking that these barbs are trivial compared to when he was a freak. The guy takes the racket with confidence and the opponent notices that the side is rough. GD responds, still smiling, saying that then the first serve belongs to the opponent. And as soon as he serves the ball, the guy tenses his calf muscles and takes off, hurrying after the ball, which he doesn't let out of his sight. His gaze focused and determined, GD swings his racket forward, leaning forward to confidently parry the blow. And he succeeds, but the delivery is unusual. The ball bounces off the racket and flies into the air, spinning quickly several times, and then heads to the side. The opponent looks stunned. Not expecting such a reception from a newbie who hasn't even played for a month, he is at a loss. But later he takes revenge in the most insidious way possible, so that the opponent does not have even the slightest chance to return the serve. The ball hits the hard surface, followed by watching eyes, and Jitty begins to think chaotically. The score is 15-0, and Jules grabs his opponent by the lapels, saying that this doesn't count because the ball was sent without a signal. Jitty's opponent chuckles, saying that he even feels embarrassed that he managed to take so many points at the very beginning, and he guesses why. The guy replies that he knew about this technique, but did not expect that his opponent would decide to use a running serve at the very beginning, and considers him a trickster. The ball flies into the air again, this time from Jitty, who, while playing, is pondering the purity of his opponent's intentions. This man has been hostile towards him from the very beginning. Is it just because he was ranked first in the admissions process? Jitty can't believe that someone their age has such childish grievances that they grow into reasons for hostility. This should be an act of high-level psychological warfare, not a childish feud full of infantile jokes. But Jitty immediately corrects himself, mentally apologizing for overestimating him, while his enemy, looking like a wolf, prepares for a new meanness. This time the guy successfully manages to hit the ball aimed at him on the court. It reflects off the mesh surface of the racket and flies back, hitting exactly along the marking line. Jules cries out, unable to contain his joy, and comments on what is happening, knowing full well that everything will end in a draw. And then the out is announced, causing the faces of both seniors to change their expressions to surprised ones. GD's opponent announces independent judging, saying that an out has been made, and the opponent, feigning holy simplicity, mentally curses. To settle the dispute, they ask the opinion of the Faculty of Fashion and Textiles whether it really was an out, since it didn't look like it. The students are completely unaware of what is going on. They are only concerned with GD's proportions. They ask to borrow him after the match to make a mannequin. 10 minutes later, the score is 40-0, and Jules is tearing his hair out in hysterics, saying that this is driving him crazy. He grabs the nearest one by the lapels, ordering him to do something about the screamer immediately. And he replies that without a referee, the players make their own decisions. Jules continues to be indignant. He doesn't understand this system, because even with the naked eye, it's obvious that the game is completely unfair. The tennis ball, meanwhile, flies back into the air above the man's hand. GD catches it with his racket, setting it on its edge to the shocked looks of his elders, and reassuringly tells his brother that everything is fine. Smiling and performing the next difficult maneuver with the ball and bat, the guy says that, as the head of the economics department said, they are just beginners. The smile turns sweet when GD also remembers her elder's words, saying that the main thing here is to enjoy the process. He thinks that he didn't intend to seriously compete with such a boor initially. He just wanted to test his own skills. But there is also the technique that will have to be used, because it is ideal for unsportsmanlike players like this guy. An experienced hand with a pencil, trembling slightly, moves the writing instrument across the paper surface, leaving the necessary sketch. Tim watches the guy's every move with greedy delight, accompanying his actions with words that give high marks. During the break, Jitty steps aside to wet his throat, but is called back. A puzzled Jules comes closer to him, asking if he really is a newbie, because how else could he have pulled off that trick? The guy gasps in embarrassment, remembering that the head of the opposing faculty said that even a complete zero in this matter can turn the handle. The interlocutor looks at the younger one with distrust, chuckling vaguely and saying that his presentation today looked suspiciously professional. The freshman plays the innocent lamb, saying that all this is the result of the brilliant instruction of his senior classmate. He perks up, throwing aside his suspicions and grabs the younger one in a friendly manner, saying that if that's the case, everything's great, and he agrees. The head of the economics department, standing a little further away, tells his junior to win this match at all costs. He agrees, and the break is coming to its logical conclusion, and a continuation of the friendly match is announced. GD's opponent, assuming a self-confident pose, asks with an extremely satisfied grin why he doesn't give up right now. His gaze turns sly as the boy continues, saying that he may have been unlucky once, but he certainly won't lose to him now. GD reminds him of his own words about being a newbie, and asks if he is not ashamed to deceive honest people. The guy raises his chin arrogantly, asking the question again, and replies that shame is a quality of losers. He continues by suggesting that we watch a Hollywood spectacle in football, since everyone unanimously insists that it is against the spirit of sport itself, or that there is nothing shameful about such a thing. But it is not. And the guy asks the question, is he really angry because such behavior is mean and he himself responds to it? No. The reason is the impossibility of the team winning. When an opponent does not play by the rules, it is considered mean. When someone who is on your side resorts to something like this, meanness is replaced by ingenuity. He continues, about to say something else, but Jitty interrupts him, saying that everyone judges others by their own behavior. He flares up, indignant that he was interrupted, and even said something like that. And Jitty continues, "It's boring to play in such a mood." He takes a tennis ball in his hand and continues, thinking that it doesn't matter whether you win or lose, you just need to take it and do it. And with these words, Jitty throws the piece of sports equipment up into the air, intending to attack. He remembers how, before the changes, he and a friend would discuss the names of the techniques used in the comics. Jitty really liked it at the time, although he wondered whether this was a copyright infringement. And after that, at a doctor's appointment, the boy was embarrassed when the doctor repeated after him the name of the procedure that led to the back injury. Now the tennis ball hits the racket, spinning and producing golden sparks. Jitty manages to block the shot, and now the opponent is forced to run in the direction of the ball rushing into his territory. He doesn't lose hope, with a nasty grin believing that it can still be hit back despite the impressive speed of the serve. And the guy mentally praises himself, rejoicing that he calculated everything perfectly. He thinks the ball will bounce in exactly the right place, where a player like him can hit it even with his eyes closed. But something unexpected happens to him. The racket remains empty, and devoid of the vibration of the ball hitting the net surface. The student's face reflects confusion, and at the same moment he sees the ball flying to a completely different place. The object whirls like a fast and small tornado, and flies right in front of the guy's nose, and he admits the thought that he teleported. He turns around in alarm, crouching and making a corresponding noise, and the tennis ball hits behind him with a powerful blow. Jules lets out a cry of delight, amazed that the object bounced back in the opposite direction as soon as it hit the ground. He and the head of the economics department immediately came up with a name for this technique, which only one person could perform. The opponent looks at the person standing next to him in amazement, surprised that he knows when everything happened. Right down to the season and episode. Jitty's opponent sits on the court's surface and shakes his whole body, thinking that if he had not dodged, something terrible could have happened. Footsteps are heard nearby, and soon a potential interlocutor appears in front of him, who immediately gives his voice. With a serious expression on his face, Jitty tells him to stand up, asking what he is doing, putting on a Hollywood performance. The guy feels uneasy from such a piercing gaze, and his opponent continues to speak. Looking at the economics student with a burning gaze, he says that they are not there yet. A deafening voice comes from the crowd of spectators, forcing Jitty to step out of her character and turn her attention to the fan. And this is not surprising, because the screaming man is right now rushing at full speed straight towards the guy who has already managed to get scared. The fans watch what is happening with no less fear and bewilderment than the victim himself, trying to understand what is happening. There is a sound of a kiss, and the crowd murmurs indignantly about who this perverted foreigner is. And only the students from the sewing and textiles department begin to squeal with flattery and reverence, perfectly understanding who is in front of them. And this man is not just anyone, but the chief designer of the Maison Signore, Tim Jones. They begin to chant the name of the man who intends to kiss the guy cowering in front of him on the other cheek as well. One of the students from the sewing and textiles department records a historical moment, while the other tries to defend the honor of a great man. The guy calls his professors via video link to show them Tim, and they, beside themselves with delight, ask to film him as close as possible. The game is forced to stop, and Jules disperses all the spectators, saying that this is not an amphitheater for them, but a tennis match. Tim later apologizes to his muse for lashing out at him when he couldn't help himself, when he defeated the villain and struck the perfect pose. The man assumes that the guy wants to know why he is here, and without waiting for an answer, says that it is all so that he will wear his clothes. Tim hands Gidi a notebook with small colored bookmarks and asks to look at what's inside. Being too polite, the guy can't refuse so easily and accepts the item from someone else's hands, agreeing with a nervous smile. Besides, he thinks that this man will not leave here until the guy fulfills the request, but the thought never ends when he sees what is inside. The sketches of clothes that appear on the pages leave Gidi speechless, but in his mind he gives them the highest praise. It's all perfect, and this is the first time since the guy got the skill. First fashionista in the area. He was always missing something. Gidi can't help but let out a splutter of excitement, wondering how such perfect clothing could exist. At the same time, he is interested in how something can be so elegant and yet so practical, reaching Tim's very heart. Gidi says if he could wear something like this just once in his life, it would be a truly successful life. The guy is surprised by the behavior of the designer standing next to him, wondering how he managed to understand everything, since he spoke his native language. And nearby a female voice is heard, giving an explanation. Even if the languages are different, the sincerity of a person is always clear. Minnie comes up to their group, continuing to talk about how the designer was touched by his words, just as he was touched by Tim's clothes. The guy looks at the woman with a frightened and amazed look, and the foreigner's look expresses happiness when he calls the second woman Angela. Tim walks up to Minnie, and there is a double kissing sound from both sides, and on top of that they hug. The woman explains to the student that with such a greeting they only pretend to kiss, but do not touch lips, and Gidi understands that Tim touched him. The guy, puzzled, says that he loves women, and the designer, looking creepy, replies that he does too, asking if it's true that they have a lot in common. Later, when they all get into the car, Gidi asks her aunt why she came, and she starts to look a little awkward. Angela is completely impartial. She does not participate in the conversation and only watches the road, as befits a good driver. Hugging Gidi, Minnie cheerfully replies that she came to spend time with her dear son, who looks disheveled. In a robotic tone, he replies that in fact, he still has classes, and the woman again suggests that he quit school before it's too late. Gidi asks if his aunt is the vice president of the Signora in their own country. She confirms these words with a satisfied smile, adding that Tim was looking for the student everywhere. The woman continues, saying that the designer had little information since Gidi is an unofficial model. The guy is surprised, asking his interlocutor how this person managed to find him. Minnie shows the screensaver on her smartphone and says that it's all thanks to her. She asks if Gidi is grateful to her. Embarrassed, he asks politely if she could change the wallpaper, and the woman asks why. The guy remembers Giddith's reaction. And while Minnie laughs, understanding what's going on, Gidi offers her to take her charge too, since classes at her school should be over by now. The woman turns away, looking into the distance and holding a long pause, after which she answers negatively. The guy expresses indignation. He continues by saying that he knows it's hard for her with her daughter. But shouldn't she spend more time with her for that very reason? And he again gets a negative answer, and also again asks a similar question. Why is Minnie so stubborn? The woman answers evasively, or does not finish what she says, and the car stops at that very moment. A little later, Gidi himself understands everything. Minnie comes closer to the guy and now speaks freely, all because minors are not allowed in the club. But she playfully asks if he can still bring her here, to which Gidi shyly replies that he blurted out something without thinking. A little later, it becomes clear to the woman why her daughter has been like this all this time, and the woman sighs in resignation. She doesn't know what to do, because as a mother she is a complete zero. Gidi laughs nervously, encouragingly asking her aunt not to worry so much. He jokes that if she tries hard now, she can still become an 80-point mother, and volunteers to help Minnie. The woman looks depressed, but nevertheless says that she is counting on her son. The guy takes a sip of drink from a faceted glass, and at the same time shifts his gaze to the side. Looking at all these dancing bodies, Gidi thinks that nightclubs are amazing places. Everything is bright and shiny here. And just as he is trying to express what, in his opinion, is the most important thing in such places, he catches the blonde's eye. Gidi thinks that she is not looking at him at all, and expects the smiling beauty to look away at any moment. But this does not happen. She looks straight at him, and at that very moment his youthful cheeks are covered with a telltale blush, and his heart skips a beat. Afraid to look at his aunt, the guy asks why he hadn't noticed so many beautiful people in the world before. She looks puzzled. Both women correctly understand what is happening to the student, but they react differently, and he still wonders. Minnie asks if they look like normal people, and Gidi suggests that they are models. The woman confirms, but only partially. She says there may be some regular people here, but most are either celebrities or models, and they're probably here because of Tim. Minnie asks if Gidi would believe her if she told him that they were all trying so hard to get the attention of the designer or the signor. The guy does not deny that such behavior could indeed be self-promotion disguised as an ordinary coincidence. Minnie notes that he's come to terms with it surprisingly quickly, and the guy replies that if you want to get something across, you need to get their attention. The interlocutor laughs, saying that they are trying in vain because Tim's lover is now their son. He politely jokes. The woman asks, after a short pause, so the guy really isn't going to go into the modeling business. He replies that he doesn't want to sign a contract with the agency. Minnie clarifies that he doesn't want to interfere with others and belong to someone. Gidi agrees with these words, to which the woman chuckles thoughtfully, turning to Angelica and talking about the Fashion Week exhibition. The guy is puzzled, noting that if the woman showed even half the care she showed to her own daughter, she would not have become like this. Minnie's eyes fill with tears, and she says she's a 0-point mother, and Gidi recommends putting a photo of her daughter as her wallpaper to start with. The woman quickly changes the subject, asking if their son wants to have some fun, promising to keep it a secret and not tell Jida, his mother. Gidi doesn't believe it, because this has happened more than once, and Minnie offers a deal. If she tells her friend, she will owe her son a car. The guy is surprised, and the woman says that Vice President Signora will not joke about money. Angela becomes a witness. She says she will sue for breach of promise and take over the position of interlocutor, who is puzzled by the fact that her jokes sound scary. Meanwhile, Gidi is distracted from the conversation, looking around and admiring the previously unknown atmosphere of this place. Suddenly, someone bumps into him from behind, causing him to be stunned and confused. Leaning forward, Gidi grabs the first thing he can find, which turns out to be someone's hand, to keep his balance. The guy hurries to apologize to the person opposite him, while experiencing a strong feeling of embarrassment. A beautiful woman, surrounded by a group of smiling friends, holds Gidi with her hands, pulling her closer and telling her that everything is okay. She compliments him, calling him very handsome and asking if he is Senior's exclusive model. When the woman asks the next question, Jitty lowers his head to somehow hide the embarrassment that has appeared on his cheeks. She asks him if he wants to dance with her and then offers him something to eat. And the guy clearly feels like he's starting to give in to her spell. The woman continues to talk about what they would do after they ate. But with a polite apology, Jitty informs her that he needs to go. Later, the designer asks why he doesn't just have fun, to which he is told that all these people are not here for him. It's great here, but he better leave before he does anything bad. And with the drops running down his face, the guy finally realizes that the tension has eased. Tim looks at Jitty with fascination, complimenting him on his excellent intuition and self-control, and realizing that he was not mistaken. The guy says he knows perfectly well that this is not what the designer meant, but the place is not right, and he asks where he is going to go. The youthful lips stretch into a wide smile. Jitty answers that it is a place where you can really enjoy the nightlife. The designer is interested in these words, and, intrigued, he goes with his muse to the designated place. Having ordered a sufficient number of snacks and drinks, the men settle down comfortably, and filling their glasses, clink glasses, pronouncing the first toast. The place that Jitty thinks is the best place to enjoy the nightlife in his city turns out to be karaoke. The guy considers chicken and a mug of beer to be the ideal food and drink for this time of day, and Tim also doesn't refuse him a drink of beer. And after that, they again, discovering a second wind in themselves, return to karaoke, feeling even greater pleasure from the process. Later, each of them orders a chocolate drink, a bomb latte, after which they won't be afraid of any hangover. They are sitting on a bench after such an intense and enjoyable time, and the man gives his voice, saying that he had a good time. With a happy expression on his face, he says that he especially liked the combination of chicken and beer, and he is going to treat his muse to it in his homeland. Jitty asks where he is from, and the designer replies that he is from England. The guy starts to fidget, awkwardly pretending to understand. After this, he asks what Tim would like from him in exchange for the clothes he is going to provide, because he believes that there is more to it than that. Even if the man had made all these clothes just for him, the designer's expression becomes more serious. He says that he can no longer hide it. He wants Gidi to walk in his fashion show because he wants to show the world the importance of a real muse. Suddenly the man's face changes. His voice becomes jealous and emotional. He doesn't want other designers to see his muse. It all becomes clear to Gidi. But just in case, he clarifies that Tim wants him to be his muse, but at the same time not to go out in public. The man says dejectedly that he doesn't like this either. He wants to brag to other designers that they don't have the same muse as he does. And yet, he lacks the prerogative to share his muse, and Jitty is puzzled by this cognitive dissonance. This person is like a child who says he won't give away his game console, but brought it to show off to his friend. The designer falls silent, and for quite a long time there is a tense silence that Jitty does not dare to break. To be perfectly honest, the guy doesn't think he can be hidden just because Mr. Tim Jones is trying to do it. Jitty is looking for something on her smartphone, and when she finds it, she turns the screen towards her interlocutor, asking him to look, and he obeys. Smiling, the guy shows Tim a traffic reload screen, saying that it is the website of the clothing store that he is currently wearing. He continues by saying that he found out about this because he knows the owner of this store, who called the guy just recently. Since the evening, there have been many requests with keywords that include the country's most popular university, Jitty Long. The designer looks surprised and repeats his interlocutor's words, waiting for him to continue, who continues, saying that they have been seen together since then. Jitty says if he gets so much attention because they were seen together, how much more will there be when he wears designer clothes? Especially now, when everything is connected with social networks, information will spread instantly. But the designer has doubts. He asks if a better solution wouldn't be to notify people directly, but Jitty is on her own wavelength. He says with an extremely satisfied look that, in addition to everything else, his conscience does not allow him to wear such incredible clothes for free. The man clutches his heart, because these words, in addition to everything else said by his muse, make an indelible impression on him. Tim is ready to change his mind if Jitty himself thinks so, and he promises to think about it more seriously, but later. Now he is about to tell the guy something. An anticipatory smile appears on the guy's face. He asks what exactly. The designer announces his return to France in 3 days, recalling the words of his colleagues, and Jitty politely inquires whether it is really so soon. He asks when his next planned trip is, and if there will be one at all. Tim replies that there will be one, but not anytime soon. But no matter how long it takes, once all the clothes are ready, the designer is going to make his muse promise to try them on. The guy agrees, and they seal the deal with a firm handshake. Jitty smiles, saying that no matter how long it takes, he will come as soon as the designer calls him. However, the next day something happened that threw the guy off track. He looked at the person in front of him with a stunned look, with deep, dark circles under his eyes, as if Tim had not slept all night. The man, with a feverish gleam in his eyes, asks Jitty to get into the car. A guy approaches a car and asks, "Did you do this without sleeping all night?" And the other guy asks how he could fall asleep after those words. In his mind, GD is finally convinced that this man really is an eccentric. On the surface of the tabletop lie sketches with new images depicted on them. The student's expression becomes puzzled, and although he does not express his admiration out loud, he cannot contain himself mentally. Before him stands a stranger, whose features express nobility in their entire appearance. He hides his restrained smile behind his fist. This man is the CEO of Signora, Pietro Battari, and at the moment he is expressing his delight. GD realizes that he stops being surprised by this more and more each time, if only because his aunt is the vice president of the senior country. Meanwhile, the interlocutor on the big screen expresses understanding of why Tim dropped everything overnight and flew to a foreign country. Pietro starts talking about selling their entire group, and the designer gracefully counters by suggesting that they share with others as well. The man on the screen addresses GD, thanking him for becoming Tim's muse. The guy listens to his interlocutor with utmost attention. He was hired as an innovative designer, but it turned out that he had an incredible thirst for travel for inspiration. His colleagues and henchmen always cried when the man went to the most incredible places, but maybe now he will settle down. Pietro exhales heavily, saying that a free artist can be interesting to the public, but not when he is a business partner. Tim retorts, and the man ends the conversation by asking him to give the student a small gift as a token of his gratitude. Pietro offers Signora's Guidi's sponsor for the next 3 years, and asks how the boy feels about such an offer. The brand promises to provide the student with everything he needs, from clothes to socks, and even plans to offer new items that have not yet been officially announced. If necessary, they can provide him with a hairstylist, and all this only on one condition, that he always wear all these things. Tim smirks smugly, noticing that Pietro is desperately clinging to his muse, and he replies that such talent cannot be given to competitors. GD speaks up, causing deep bewilderment on the men's faces. He politely apologizes and says that he refuses. The designer is stunned. Pietro brings back the calm expression on his face. But now it looks cold. He asks why the boy refuses. Doesn't he realize what an opportunity he's giving up? Or is it just that the guy prefers another brand? GD answers evasively, saying that the reason is neither one nor the other. The interlocutor repeats the question, trying to get to the bottom of the truth. There's a long silence for a few seconds as the guy thinks about how luxury brands are great, and sponsorship is even better. And yet the best of all is his new life, which began that day with the reboot. If GD's life is limited to just being able to wear luxury items, he doesn't need anything like that. And the guy replies that beautiful and stylish things need to be worn and shown off, even if they are not from a famous brand like Signor. Pietro is convinced that Tim has found a real muse, and Guidi, seeing the designer's behavior, asks if he always dramatizes like this. The man apologizes if his words caused misunderstanding. It seems that he subconsciously took his interlocutor for someone who is ready to do anything to wear Signor. The student allows himself a polite smile, parrying gently, and suggesting that perhaps he himself had reacted a little sharply to these words. The man compliments the good manners of his interlocutor, admitting that after this he wants him even more. But that's not all. He has already given orders to the Signor in the student's country, and he can take any clothes he wants. It is a gift, not a sponsorship. He can also take everything for his family, neighbors, and acquaintances. GD laughs reservedly, saying that you need to be careful with your words, because you can regret it. The guy understands to himself that it was a joke, becoming convinced that even CEOs can joke, because they are people too. Later, the guy finds himself in a branded store, where gloss and chic reign, and Aunt Minnie, casually waving her hand at the things, allows him to take everything. Guidi modestly chooses a jacket and a long sleeve, and the woman is amazed, imagining how upset Pietro will be at such a low cost. The guy, on the contrary, sitting down in a chair is amazed that the sum of just 2 outfits is worth millions, taking back his words about Pietro. Minnie invites her son's parents to the store, and while they are looking at the things with admiration, he asks if this behavior is normal. The woman smiles softly, saying that if Pietro said that you can take whatever you want, then that means everything really is like that. She asks what's wrong, does the guy really feel awkward, and he confirms these words, because he hasn't done anything for Signor yet. Minnie's smile becomes sly, and the woman decides to share information with her interlocutor, asking him to listen to her carefully. GD is wrong in his words, because he made a huge contribution to the brand's sales for at least 3 years to come. The woman continues by saying that even 1 trillion wouldn't be enough to describe how many sales the guy will generate. He is amazed when he hears the amount. It's not just anything, but a whole trillion. He wonders how much that would be in kilograms of pork belly, and the woman forbids GD from eating anything like that. She becomes emotional, saying that he is a treasure to the Signor simply because he exists, so he needs to take good care of himself. The boy throws his hands up in surrender and expresses understanding, asking his aunt to calm down and asking how he can help. A look of surprise flashes across the woman's face, but she immediately pulls herself together and reminds her interlocutor of the words that she asked him not to feel obligated. But that's not quite it, and the guy gently counters by saying that he's just gained confidence that he can do it. The boy's eyes widen wider than usual, and the dancing lights of anticipatory excitement become clearly visible in them. The woman is taken aback for a few moments when she notices her son's enthusiasm, and her expression of surprise returns to her face. But it's not just that. Exhaling, surprise gives way to a condescending smile, and Minnie wonders when this guy managed to grow up so much. She turns around, motioning for the boy to follow her, admitting that she did have some ideas she wanted to pitch to him. A condescending expression appears on Jidi's face, as he had assumed this would happen. And in the meantime, they enter another room. The boy's father, standing next to a rack with neatly folded luxury clothes, turns his head to the side in order to find what he wants. This is achieved almost immediately, and the man's eyes find his wife trying on expensive clothes and standing near the mirror to evaluate them. Her still beautiful face expresses genuine delight and happiness when she has the honor of trying on items from such an expensive and famous brand. He looks at her, so joyful and beautiful, and involuntarily pictures from the past appear before his eyes. Once upon a time, a man looked at his wife with bewilderment, torn inside by the desire to do at least something, although little depended on him. Jidita, then young but not nearly as happy as she is now, sat on her knees on the floor and cried bitterly out of despair. When she managed to calm down her sobbing at least a little, she asked him, in a completely exhausted voice, why life was so hard. It was really important for her to get an answer to this question, because it interested her for a number of reasons. Jidita had never been lazy before, being hardworking and diligent since childhood. When she was just starting to get on her feet, she struggled to pay her mortgage, while at the same time paying off all her debts with difficulty but regularly. The woman wondered if the day would ever come when the garbage bag would tear, and she would just laugh at those pennies. The man looked at his wife with sympathy, but he couldn't do anything, so he just remained silent, because there was no point in what he was going to say now. But inside the depressing truth, he could not contain himself, constantly thinking that they were in this situation because of him. The man recalled how his father promised to sell a cow to pay for his son, Henry's education, so that he would simply focus on it. Because of him, the eldest son, his younger brothers and sisters missed out on a lot, and he was going to support everyone until they found a normal job. Henry remembered the day he proposed to the girl, asking if she would want to marry a man like him. Deep down, Ray knew that Jidita shouldn't live this life, but she married him anyway. And then he said that he would take out the trash, but she refused, because the man had just come home from work, asking her to look after the baby in exchange. As Jidita left the apartment, she gave her husband a happy smile, saying that she did not regret marrying him, and she asked him not to make such a face. But in the present, despite all this, Henry could not fulfill her requests. It's all because this woman now looks incredibly happy and joyful, and all these expensive clothes suit her so incredibly. She smiles shyly and laughs contentedly, as if the difficulties that happened decades ago were gone and were left behind. It only takes one blink of an eye and a touch of imagination for Henry to see his dear wife again as the young beauty she was. He turns away so that no one can see him and moves away, wanting to hide. Tears well up in Henry's eyes as he silently thanks his son for being able to give his mother what she had long deserved. Later, he places a huge clear glass on the countertop with a loud bang, confessing that he is a sinner. The man shares with his son that his mother has suffered a lot because of him. He couldn't even buy the boy that bag, and asks about the cost. Jidi names the price, and Henry asks with a depressed look if he is really allowed to accept such gifts. He replies that everything is fine. He also agreed to help with the work, and the guy remembers a recent conversation with Aunt Minnie, who said that it was not worth being in debt. Meanwhile, a girl comes up to him from behind and politely draws his attention to herself. Jidi turns to her questioningly. There is another stranger standing next to her, and they, embarrassed and asking if they made a mistake, delicately ask permission to take a photo with him. One of the girls says that she was a fan of Jidi since his debut as That Boy Next Door, and he asks her to forget about it. Having done what they wanted, the strangers leave, paying a final compliment to their idol's father, and the administrator politely says goodbye to them. Henry asks his son what the expression they said about him being the first handsome of the leading university means. The guy replies that he got this nickname on the internet, and boasts that his son is a little popular among the fair sex. The man asks Jidi not to worry about marriage, promising that his wife will live the most luxuriously, intending to provide for them. A few days later, the day of Tim Jones's departure arrives, and everyone gathers at the airport. The designer thanks his muse for her hospitality, saying that he had a great time here. Exchanging fake kisses, Jidi replies that it has been an honor to help the man these 3 days. Tim expresses hope that the next time they see each other will be in France, because the director is also looking forward to having dinner with him. The guy replies that if there is an opportunity, he will definitely come. And with a beaming smile, the designer Signora says goodbye to her young friend. He promises to surprise Jidi with even cooler clothes next time, and Jidi waves his hand in response with a polite smile. A notification arrives on the smartphone, and the student takes it out of his pocket, plunging his gaze into the depths of the screen. Holding the phone in his hand, he smiles with a satisfied expression on his face, thinking that it is not yet clear which of them will be surprised next time. On the screen is a conversation with Aunt Minnie, who sent her son his schedule in response to his request. The woman is currently at home, smiling contentedly at her own thoughts and also watching their dialogue. She puts her phone aside, thinking about how, as soon as she became vice president, her son immediately showed himself. Life is unexpected. Jidit, who was passing by and heard these words, did not take her eyes off the smartphone lying on the table, thinking about her older brother, the bear cub. While her mother goes away somewhere, the girl approaches the device and takes it in her hands, obsessed with the idea that has arisen. Suddenly her eyes widen, filled with deep surprise at what she saw. The thing is that the wallpaper on my mother's smartphone screen has a different photo than before, and now it's a small picture of her. Jidit glances around sharply, checking that no one is nearby, and then returns her gaze to the screensaver. She takes a picture of herself, thinking that she is much more beautiful now. So why did her mother put a photo from her first birthday in the background? A cheerfully whistled melody rises towards the blue sky, and the dazzling sun sitting on its blue. A man in a formal suit is walking down the street, with a musical instrument case behind his back. Making a visor with his hand, he is delighted, and a satisfied smile appears on his face. The man is glad that the end of his professorial life has come, and it happened on such a wonderful day. This professor's name is Mead Chain, and he was a fairly successful guitarist in the past. Now this man has become a nobody, having destroyed and crossed out his successful past with a bang. 2 weeks ago, the man checked how many students had signed up for the course and found that there were only 5. The reviews of the course were devastating, and Mead's mental state was also at 0. He sat on campus and dejectedly plucked the strings. 2 weeks of cancelled classes raised concerns about the professor's contract ending next time for the same reason. The man believes that he has no one to blame, because no one else, but he himself, gave bad grades for the lack of romantic direction. He knew this very well, because no matter how beloved it once was, all music eventually leaves the mainstream. Everything that rises, sooner or later falls, and the change of generations leads to a change in trends. Of course, the older generation never disappears completely, but for example, at the university, the new generation completely prevails. Mead even stopped complaining about the reason why the tea that was sold before is no longer served in any of the youth cafes. However, the man wonders what he will do to earn a living if he is fired from the university. Even like his former professor, the man is uncompetitive without a degree in practical music, and there is no certainty of a successful return. And all of this is entirely his personal fault. Students speak of Mead's course as one that is known for its strict grades. The girls look at their interlocutor with interest, expecting to know the answer to the question of why. Knowing this, he decided to choose this particular course. The guy is embarrassed, admitting that he feels awkward talking about it, but still answers because his friend said that he smells like an old man. But there's something else. GD pauses, and the students hurry him, saying that they are listening carefully. The guy replies that he has a dream. With a charming smile, he says that he wants to play the guitar while sitting on the university grass. The next moment the door opens and the course instructor enters the classroom, which is completely filled with students. Many questioning glances turn to him, wanting to check who the person who entered was. The man's gaze expresses bewilderment, because after the previous failure, he did not expect to see absolutely anyone here. And all because GD's schedule somehow leaked into the university community, increasing enrollment by 1,000%. Memories from the past flash before Mead's eyes, and instead of the assembled students, he sees a hall full of devoted fans. He looked at the room, which was completely packed that day, with a surprised but at the same time grateful look. Almost like now. Only now do tears well up in the eyes of the grown-up Mead from an excess of emotions, because at this very moment, he understands that he is saved. The man exhales heavily and wipes his eyes with his sleeve, considering what is happening to be a dream that has forced him to display such shameful sentimentality. GD sits in the back seat of the car and makes pleasant sounds from the guitar. Angela compliments him. She thinks the musical instrument is cool and clarifies that he bought it recently. The guy replies that his elective professor gave it to him as a token of gratitude, saying that this guitar had been with him to another country. The woman politely asks if she can find out the professor's name, and the man answers and asks if she knows him. Angela says that the musician was not very famous, but he was known, and suggests that if the money runs out, ask for his autograph and sell it. The woman smiles. She is pleased that this guy reacts so calmly to her jokes, because everyone else thinks she is creepy at this moment. The traffic light turns red, and GD, with a polite smile, replies that the reaction to jokes depends on who is receiving them. The woman asks the guy if he's nervous about today's photo shoot, and he replies that he's done them several times before, for example, in Italy or at the university. But the interlocutor sharply parries, which causes misunderstanding in the eyes of GD. She softens her tone a little, saying that this particular photo shoot should be especially nerve-wracking for the guy. The reason is that the magazine that will feature this spread is a very influential magazine, X magazine. The pride of a group is simultaneously equated with the pride of all the people who are part of it. GD becomes curious about the mood in which the staff of this famous arrogant X magazine works. A confident female voice cuts through the space like a whip, and it is obvious to its owner that what is happening is sponsorship. She does not agree with putting such an amateur on the cover, because this is the most real madness. The photographer adds fuel to the fire by saying that he is not even a model, and he swore that he would only photograph family members. A third participant joins the conversation with a sly smile, noting that since the senior is promoting him, he is definitely not an ordinary person. The woman asks if he knows that the vice president of his country recently changed, and that rumor has it that he is that man's son. The man in the cap begins to be indignant, confirming the fall of the senior branch in this country, and the woman thinks about the appointment of a communications officer. Her first interlocutor is also thinking about his own things, making sure that this non-professional model is an ordinary person. The very last participant in the conversation continues to feel angry, thinking about the privileges that connections can give him. GD replays the conversation with Angela in his head, remembering that he will be considered unpleasant, inexperienced, and stepping on people's heads. She said that if the first button was unbuttoned incorrectly, it would be not only his personal shame, but that of the entire seigneur of their country. Angela had been urging him to show these people what he could do, and right now the guy was walking into the photo shoot location. There, the very same people who had spoken unflatteringly about the newcomer were already waiting for the student. But as soon as they see the one with whom they will have to work, amazement appears on the faces of each of the three. After all, he literally exudes an attractive aura that encourages interaction, even when his facial features are not fully visible. When the face becomes clearly visible, the guy says hello and respectfully expresses his desire to do a great job on today's shoot. The three of them wonder who he is and are later asked how the photo shoot with GD Long went. The older man begins to answer, saying that perhaps he is ordinary, and the woman picks up on this, saying that his skills are the best. The younger one adds that the guy was very nice, and the woman joins in, saying that he has a strange charm in every sense. They say that they would like to work together again, and they are asked to come into the guy's dressing room and tell him about it. But the answer is unanimous and categorical. And all because right now, GD is busy with something much more important. He is training for tomorrow's talent show, practicing his guitar. The woman asks to speak immediately as soon as the guy needs something, and he, smiling, politely thanks her. He thinks that luckily he can practice in the waiting room. If he does well, he can unlock a new skill. It's called Rooftop Star, and the unlock conditions are getting the guitar and listening to and playing songs. If time is short, it's almost impossible to get it. But GD learned all the necessary chords yesterday. They say you have to play 30 songs 10 times each, but to play it perfectly you have to play it at least 300 times. While at karaoke, GD asks his friend to sing a certain song again, and his friend asks if he really wants him to find his mother again. Moments later, Julian selects the desired song and begins to sing it, with his companion accompanying him on guitar and singing along. GD trains, carefully using every free minute of his time, and it ends unpleasantly for him. The guy begins to feel very strong pain in his hand. It is so strong that it becomes unbearable to play, but he does not lose hope. And yet, the human body has a tendency to wear out if it is used too much, and it's not just the body that's affected. At the same time as GD is looking at her sore fingers, somewhere else someone is looking at their uninjured palm. The mind also has a tendency to wear out, and the girl with the guitar behind her back clenches her fingers into a fist. She looks away, saying that she wants to give up. The pain also has a tendency to progress without treatment. 3 years ago, an article about this very girl's album was published, but the person who saw it swears at what was written. He doesn't understand how they can publish something like this, to which a subordinate standing nearby remarks that she has attracted a lot of attention. A female voice is heard from the side, optimistically declaring that everything is fine, and the owner of the voice grabs noodles from the glass. With a playful wink, she asks if that's how all singer-songwriters start, to which she receives a categorical no. At that time, she was sure that if her first album came out, people would definitely listen to it, and then she would be recognized as a singer with pure intentions. However, her first and second albums were sales flops. Then they offered her, even though they knew that the girl didn't love him, to record an album in the dance genre. They did so, and her manager told Salt that the response to her third and first successful album was great, and they offered her a show. The girl thought about it for some time because, frankly speaking, she sincerely hoped that this album would also fail. However, in the end she agreed. She was not happy. If she could succeed in wearing provocative clothes and singing dance hits, she felt those songs would become her true self. Salt informs those present that she will be arriving soon, as she only needs to go to the toilet. The girl stands inside for a long time, turning on the water tap, for some unknown reason. Because in fact, she did not need to come to this place. Finally, she gathers the strength to turn off the valve and leave the toilet, her high heels clicking on the tiles. But Salt stops before reaching his final goal. She freezes in the doorway, staring ahead with lifeless eyes. The assistant gasps while talking on the phone and asks the director about Salt's location, after which he suggests that she is a little depressed. Her whole life she was proud of her writing and lyrics, so now she must be hurt. The girl, meanwhile, continues to stare ahead with an unseeing gaze, deep in her thoughts. She reaches forward with her hand, and the assistant meanwhile gently objects to the interlocutor, because the singer has been in the toilet for a very long time. Salt stops as the sounds of music reach her ears, capturing her attention. It is not clear how they managed to reach the girl's distant consciousness, but she turns around, led by a wonderful melody. Leaving the open door behind, the guitarist takes off, and not sparing her feet, shod in high-heeled shoes, rushes towards the enchanting call. The sounds of music grow closer with each step she takes, and she continues to run, firmly confident that she will reach the source of the melody. Here, Salt stops in front of some door, and reaches out his hand to the metal handle, wanting to know who is such an impeccable master. It turns out that he is a handsome young man, enthusiastically strumming the strings of his acoustic guitar. Feeling someone's eyes on him, Jidi stops playing and looks up at the intruder, his expression becoming puzzled. The eyes of the girl who looks at him fill with tears that threaten to spill and wet the girl's cheeks at any moment. Salt speaks up, pleadingly asking the musician to continue playing, and the musician can clearly hear him trembling. And Jidi continues, chord after chord, extracting pure sounds from under his fingers that later become a beautiful melody. The girl walks into the room and sits down opposite the stranger, and after a while a smile blossoms on her lips. And at that very moment she realizes that her deep emotional pain is finally gone. The interlocutor inquires in an uneasy tone, clarifying what he just heard. Salt has disappeared somewhere. Her restless legs continued to run tirelessly, because 20 minutes had already passed since she had gone to the toilet, and the girl still had not returned. The director tells the manager to find Salt as soon as possible, because something could have happened to her. He asks not to say such unhappy things. The man remembers what happened this morning, and he becomes even more uneasy. A bad feeling arises periodically. The words the girl had spoken earlier kept popping up in my head, causing my sophisticated brain to come up with horrible options. The man admits that he has already felt anxious today, and suddenly his eyes widen, catching on one detail. He turns around to look at the half-open door he had just run past, and at that very moment, a familiar voice is heard from there. With a serene expression on her smiling face, Salt hums the tune, guided by the sounds of her guitar. Her voice is as pure as the melodic notes coming out of the musical instrument in the hands of a handsome young man. When Jidi finishes playing, the girl claps her hands enthusiastically, asking the guy to play her another encore. He thinks that she sings well. Smiling, Salt asks if he also came to the interview for the new song and which agency's artist he is. The guy smiles awkwardly, gasps embarrassedly, and admits that he is a very ordinary person. The singer finds it hard to believe. Jidi confirms these words, explaining that he was simply practicing for tomorrow's talent show and has only been playing for less than a week. The singer is seriously puzzled, mentally amazed at how a person with such a level of skill can play for less than a week. She feels ashamed because while such a genius exists in the world, she only whines about the fact that the world does not recognize her true self. He asks about her experience, and the girl becomes extremely awkward when she answers that she is a third-year newcomer. Behind Salt, an excited voice is heard calling the girl by her full name, and she turns to him with a question in her eyes. A man who appeared in the passageway asks the singer to take her phone with her from now on, even to the toilet. She, puzzled, apologizes to her manager. He starts to talk about how worried he and the director were, but he stops, and the man's eyes widen in surprise. Unable to contain himself, he turns to the guy sitting right in front of him. The look becomes puzzled and narrowed when the manager asks the interlocutor if he wants to become a celebrity. A smile appears on Jidi's lips as he initially answers positively, but then immediately changes his answer to negative. The guy is called back for a photo shoot and he leaves, and manager Salt lets out a heavy sigh, realizing that this is still impossible. The girl follows the man's back with an interested look, asking her interlocutor who the person he was trying to recruit was. The manager says that every agency in their country wants this man, but he refuses to belong to anyone. The man continues, listing Jidi's virtues, concluding that he is the blue chip of the present time. Salt asks how smart he is, and gets the answer that this man got into the best university with the highest grades. The girl is amazed by his achievements, thinking with shame that she really was nothing compared to him. The manager looks at the singer in surprise. He asks his ward if something happened. She answers the question with a question about why the man did that. He says that she has been depressed lately, and yet now Salt doesn't look like that, as if something has changed. The girl herself is surprised by the change, as if she herself just noticed it. The singer lowers her eyes, thinking for a moment, but immediately understands what such a striking change consists of. Remembering what caused her to smile the brightest and most genuinely in a long time, Salt replies that something very good happened. The girl turns to her manager with an unusual request. After today's photo shoot, she wants to re-record her third album. He goes into a state of deep shock, saying that she doesn't need to force herself, but the girl insists, saying that she's fine. She remembers her past, looking at what is happening from a completely different angle. Meeting with Jidi changed her. Salt remembers herself at that time, her mood and worldview, her unbridled inspiration and desire to be a singer. And with the brightest smile, she says in the present that she wants to be that ambitious version of herself from the past again. At first, the manager looks at his charge with surprise and even caution, trying to understand what the catch is. But the next moment his gaze changes. A condescending smile appears on his face, and the man lets out a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, it's her turn for an interview, and as she walks into the appropriate room, the manager says that this is exactly the image that suits her. Stretching, Salt says she wants to make the video the man was talking about, and he asks if she didn't say she hated those kinds of outfits. A man's hand takes a lip balm out of his crossbody and removes the cap. He applies balm to his lips, making them shine. The other students follow their classmates' example, and soon their lips are also covered with a glossy layer. GD awkwardly says, trying not to look at his interlocutor, that he couldn't even imagine that he would apply lipstick so diligently. He replies that he simply has to use sponsored products, especially imagining how the economics students will envy them. Suddenly, Jules asks his neighbor if he is really prepared for the team talent show, and he replies that he is ready to amaze everyone there. When they arrive at the scene, after a while a loud male voice, amplified by a microphone, cuts through the air. A senior informs the freshmen that it is time for dinner, and they complain that Jules is too noisy. He bursts out laughing, calling the first year's kids, and a little later they begin to prepare dinner together, remembering the cooking from their parents' house. Rice cooked in a steamer is looked at with an unambiguous expression, with the person who cooked it asking if he mistook the grain for vomit. A student is about to treat her classmate to some curry she cooked, but the color alone makes her gag. One of the guys, realizing that their team is doomed, expresses his intention to use the help of Gidi's team. The second asks him, begging. A flame erupts above the grill, and a column of flame jumps into the air more than a meter, with 3 students standing around it. Gidi is thanked for starting the fire, sarcastically informing him that he will now be able to summon the spirit of his great-grandmother. Jules, meanwhile, informs those present that he has prepared a lot of noodles, as he thought that everyone would be cooking porridge. He doesn't believe that there are those who can't brew it, and the column of flame above the grill just won't go down. Gidi is asked not to touch anything. He dejectedly agrees with his interlocutor. Jules is amazed how noodles can catch fire at all. In the end, I managed to get my fill by begging for noodles with the help of Gidi, offering in exchange the opportunity to take a photo with him. Later, after the meal was over, the host asks those present from the stage whether all the students managed to eat their fill. The senior asks enthusiastically, calling the crowd into action, what they should do after they have eaten their fill. The students burst into a disgruntled murmur, but Jules does not calm down, repeating the question and saying that he does not hear. He says that he will provide them with talent show prizes, with the third-place winner receiving 7 boxes of alcoholic drink, as well as 10 chickens. The participant who manages to become second will receive an unlimited amount of alcoholic drinks and snacks. A student from the team, Law of Muscles, Strength, asks if this is a joke. Because they really robbed a chicken farm, his friend has a different opinion. The team members, the awesome chicks, think the prizes are so luxurious. It's like they've gotten to an awesome party. The students on the I Told You team look puzzled, wondering if Gidi's team plays guitar too. And the last one is on the team, first place in this group, and is just as puzzled about the fact that they have a coincidence with the previous team. The host says that he can already feel the fighting spirit of each of the participants from here, and anticipates an inimitable battle. And now he is ready to announce the award for first place, which assistants roll out on a cart. The looks on all the students' faces become first surprised and then delighted. They cannot believe that the reward will be like this. The first team in the top gets the same as the second, plus a special alcoholic drink aged for 17 years. And to the jubilant cries of the students, the senior student announces the beginning of the talent show. The first to take the stage are the students from the Law of Muscles, Strength team, declaring their achievements from the very first step. They lift heavy weights, demonstrating the strength of their steel muscles. When the students finish, Jules approaches them. He asks one of the participants how he can be so strong, to which he replies that he increased the weight of his bag by 1 kilogram each time. The presenter asks what he thinks is the best part of the first year in their department, and the student replies that the textbooks are very hard, and he shows off his accomplishments, since they're talking about it, by tearing up a 500-page textbook on the basics of business management. Management professor Chase King, sitting on the jury, smiles and declares, to the stunned looks of his colleagues, that this is his textbook. But the very next moment he aggressively presses the red button in front of him, expressing his will to overturn this command. The participants leave the stage with a dejected look, and the leading senior student, meanwhile, announces the next team. The awesome chicks who took to the stage are going to show off their choreographic skills to those present. Someone asks if they will dance a couple dance, to which they receive a response from the participants themselves, who declare that they are brother and sister. The audience starts laughing, tearing their stomachs from laughter, asking again for decency, and expressing the same apologies. Neighbor Gidi says that when there were dances between boys and girls on school trips, most of them were hooligans. She asks if it was the same for them, he confirms. Although he has never driven, someone approaches them from behind, forcing the guy to turn around. He is asked whether he will represent his team alone and whether the guy will be able to decently lead such a random group. Opponents scoff, saying that 4 vocalists and 1 instrumentalist is more of an a cappella act, and that he has almost no experience. GD looks at his potential rivals at first with a calm gaze, his face devoid of emotion. But then he allows himself to smile. The guy says that he has mastered one very interesting technique, so his rival shouldn't worry about it. The student smiles. GD remains silent, hearing her phrase about how he didn't scare her at all with these words, and continues to smile provocatively. He recalls that 2 weeks ago at a karaoke bar, he received advice from an expert who asked the guy if he was preparing for a talent show. The guy also asked why GD rehearses with him and not with his team. Although it is understandable, because of his studies it is also difficult to understand trends. The interlocutor replies that he needs to at least perform well at this event in order to make up for the missed meeting. He politely asks Julian to help him in this matter because he was born to be popular. He smiles with a sly look. The best friend jokingly calls GD a puppy and offers to pay for karaoke today in exchange. The student does not resist, on the contrary, politely agrees. They combine their rest with training, not only preparing for the talent show, but also having a good rest and performing their favorite songs. Julian's gaze becomes serious. He carefully restrains himself, asking his ward not to even look at the light songs. The guy turns his puppy eyes to his trainer, thinking that these songs are perfectly preserved, but he abruptly interrupts him, telling him to listen. Julian, with the air of a connoisseur, asks his interlocutor if he knows that a talent show is not about what you like the most, and not about idleness. GD looks at his friend in surprise, saying that he doesn't understand then what needs to be shown at such events. Julian exhales heavily, noting that it was all because the guy was too caught up in the reboot and didn't go on the school trips together. Meanwhile, the next performers in line are the musical group Yaje Govoril, and the host announces them. The students come out on stage and the lead singer begins her speech. She says that the song they will perform is about life. It's a song that provides comfort during difficult times. However, playing such sentimental music during entertainment is not the best idea. The senior is puzzled, wondering how he will revive the atmosphere that this group left behind. Professor Chase, with tears welling up in his eyes, shares that the song he just performed was once his father's favorite piece. It feels like mom serving her freshly made soup at a fancy party, and everyone misses their mom. But perhaps their team is the only one who thinks this way. GD wonders in confusion if his friend is a shaman. He advised choosing a popular and upbeat recent hit to perform, so as not to worsen the atmosphere, which was already full of negativity. Julian suggested choosing a song that was on the charts, but one whose chorus even someone with a deaf ear could sing along to. The best performance combines effectiveness, mass appeal, and skill, so it's important to focus on the latter, Julian thinks, reflecting on the fact that there are 4 people on his friend's team who promise to sing well and dance a little. There are only 2 weeks of rehearsals, and the guy asks GD what he is going to do about it, who looks at his interlocutor silently, also reasoning. Jules announces the team's performance, first place for this group, and one of the students excitedly shouts out GD's name. And while the students, seeing an acoustic guitar, wonder if they will have to cry again, Jules thinks about his youngest. Seeing him alone on stage, the senior wonders if this guy just went and sent his own team away. The crowd is filled with anticipation as the student tunes his guitar and focuses on the performance ahead. With a pick between his fingers, GD thinks about how skill comes from being able to make people focus. He touches the strings of the instrument, striking the first sounds from the guitar, and remembers the words spoken by his coach friend that day at karaoke. The mass appeal is the ability to make everyone enjoy themselves, just like now, because the excitement appears on the students' faces. It is also the power that allows you to focus so much that you do not allow anything else to enter your field of vision. GD remembers the girl's revelation when she confessed to him that they joined because they wanted to be friends. They had no special skills. The guy wasn't upset then, because he wasn't counting on anything grand, but he already had an idea, and he proposed it to his team. A projector illuminates a stage on which a guitarist sits, playing a popular song on his instrument. GD smiles, enveloped in the sounds of his own music and sharing it with everyone present. He skillfully wields the small instrument in his hand, having honed his performance to perfection. Students watching this incredible performance gape in delight and take out their phones to capture the moment. Now on this stage, there is not just a guy with a good look, but also a musician whose skill in playing the instrument is high. And when GD thinks, if you don't pay attention to this, it might as well not have happened, the rest of the participants come on stage. At first they are wearing nondescript sports clothes, but then the performance reaches its climax, because they take them off and find themselves in different ones. Happy smiles appear on the students' faces, because they themselves like what is happening now. They have caught their wave and are not going to let go. The 2 girls and 2 boys who join GD's team to be friends with him no longer worry about not having talent. The audience is infected with this enthusiasm, asking each other where all these people came from, and whether this is real magic. GD remembers what happened during their rehearsals, and now it seems to him that 5 minutes is not enough after 2 weeks of brainstorming. Continuing his speech, he turns his gaze to his nearby comrades and hears their quiet voices. Each of them has their own thoughts. The students reflect on the fact that this performance combines everything they can do, and it represents an idol. GD's concentrated expression changed, and a restrained smile appeared on his face that was impossible to stop. An idea occurs to him and the guy suddenly raises his index finger, attracting even more attention. Full of enthusiasm and infected with the spirit of his audience, he invites those who are confident to come up on stage and enjoy the festival. Later, watching the video of this performance, one will be amazed at how students of this prestigious university can relax. Jumping and somersaulting in such a small space looks really impressive, because the stage is small. And these guys, who look so natural, although they started their encore performance without preparation, also deserve special praise. But what catches the eye more than anything else is something else. The culprit of this free interpretation appears on the smartphone screen. The video is paused and it clearly shows the expression on the guy's face as he looks at those around him, clearly enjoying the process. Manager Salt thinks they definitely need to take the guy, even if it means offering 8-2. The director looks ahead with a thoughtful gaze, and after a short silence answers negatively, it is worth raising the percentage by 9. Some time passes since that day. The city continues to live its own life. The hands holding the phone, the owner of which is reading a message that has just arrived, begin to shake. Clutching her head, the girl cries out in dismay and curses. Another team has already taken over this company, and those sitting behind are touched. Turning around abruptly, she notices that now is not the time to pet cats, calling her rude, saying that there should always be time for that. A more substantial conversation ensues between them. They try to choose a company, but everyone offered is already taken. The students do not notice the person who approaches them, being too carried away, and he attracts attention to himself with his voice and gesture. He continues, jokingly saying that the great one has arrived. The one who notices a classmate first notifies the others that he has arrived. He thanks one of the guys for letting him be on the team, even though he missed class for a photo shoot. But he is not offended, because they perform together. GD laughs, clarifying what task they were given, and one of the students brings him up to date. Another reminds that the professor promised to cancel the answer if they use the same service or choose the same as the other team. However, most of the large companies on the list are already taken by other teams, and the cat, tired of being squeezed, bites the nearest hand. A smile blossoms on GD's face and he asks, sharing with those present the idea that has arisen, "What about the mobile games market?" The boys unanimously turn their astonished glances at him, and the cat, taking advantage of the moment, jumps off the table to sneak away. GD repeats her words, asking if anything comes to mind with the phrase mobile games. They get it, but it's not what they need, and the guy quickly interrupts the flow of their unpleasant thoughts, suggesting what he meant. There really is a lot of material on this topic. Many did not know that people spend hundreds of millions on mobile games. The team leader happily suggests dividing up roles, assigning GD the responsibility for the presentation. A girl approaches a disgruntled guy and asks if he agrees that when you don't participate enough, you get a task that is more difficult than others. GD retorts, asking how he didn't participate much, saying he was at all the meetings, and a voice calls out to him from behind. The guy, sensing something is wrong, runs away, and the man pursuing him says on the run that he is from the agency, White Tiger, and came personally because the message was ignored. His comrades note that he has disappeared again, and unanimously decide to enroll the student as the leader of their team. Minnie's polite laughter comes from the phone speaker. GD tells her that he has serious problems. He is being bothered so much that he has not been able to have a normal lunch lately. The woman assumes that they need him that much. He asks again if these people are really that desperate. She reminds the interviewer that every time a photo shoot comes out, it hits the top 10 search queries in real time. Minnie shares Signore's sudden increase in sales and asks who GD thinks is behind all these achievements. He wonders if he really is impressive, and his interlocutor says that they probably expected the guy to join Signore. But contrary to expectations, he decided to remain independent, so agencies are rushing to make a move so that the student can join them. GD sighs heavily, saying that if he is disturbed a few more times, he will turn into a hedgehog. Minnie smiles, noting that this is exactly the life of a man who is only half famous. Beginning to feel particularly hopeless, GD asks if these people would stop persecuting him if he were part of the Signore. He waits for an answer, but instead he hears a sound that does not bode well. Thinking that the connection has been interrupted, GD looks at the smartphone screen and sees that there is a video call from her aunt. While accepting, the guy sees a laptop with the CEO Signora on the screen, and Minnie suggests discussing the above more seriously. The management deal with Signora eventually fell through, due to a complete lack of management experience. With a graceful wave of her hand, Minnie asks if it would be possible to assemble the team now, and the other man thinks about it. It may be an ambassador in terms of representing the brand, but they are the ones who already have a reputation and act as a representative. The CEO talks about cultivating a star under the brand and, in essence, recognizing GD as a symbol of Signor. For the model, this is not an easy choice. If someone feels the beauty of a statue of Venus, it means that this emotion is directed at the image, not at the model for the statue. The model is the one who distinguishes the brand through himself. If it meets the conditions, then it does not matter who wears Venus. The star they raise becomes the embodiment of the brand, and this means that seemingly insignificant details, such as what the model likes to eat, are brought to life, and of course what she wears. But along with that, there is another non-material side. These include moral issues, ideology, and criminal record, which means that even the slightest slip of the tongue can become a huge weakness for the brand. It becomes clear to GD, he agrees with his interlocutors. Because indeed, direct cultivation of a model is associated with many risks. Pietro says he's only assuming a worst-case scenario. CEOs have to answer to a lot of investors. Plus, he'd seen how devastating incidents like the 1990s serial killer's favorite brand could be. But he doesn't question GD's character. If he had less to protect, the boy would be welcomed with open arms. The student smiles, thanking his interlocutor for turning even a fleeting joke into a pleasant conversation. Minnie smiles indulgently, noticing that she wasn't joking. She continues by asking if it would really be a good idea to drop out of school and go to the casting. It will pay off in the future. GD interrupts his aunt, gratefully declining and saying that he only recently turned 20. The guy is asked about his plans for the future, and he replies that for now, he plans to maintain a free lifestyle. This is necessary so that in the present time he can only do what he wants. The man thoughtfully scratches his chin. After a brief pause, he softly addresses GD by name and warns her that he is about to say something out of concern. Later, a student sitting in a cafe enters a dialogue where a file with the distributed roles of the group awaits him. A waiter comes to his table, places the order on the table, and politely informs the guest that his hibiscus tea is ready. The guy thanks him. Pulling the mug closer to himself, GD thinks about what serves as the basis for making this tea. A dried flower. Popularity is a thing that is very reminiscent of the same flower. Once a flower wilts and curls up, it is no longer possible to turn back time. So what will GD do then if the same thing happens to him? A guy enjoying a drink places his cup on the table with a louder sound than it should have. In that case, he thinks, 98 remaining lives will await him. And out loud he notes the divine taste of hibiscus. Several days pass since then, and the same cat is sitting on the campus lawn, tidying himself up. An indignant voice is heard over the laptop with the presentation open. Is the interlocutor serious? This really does look like a corporate presentation. GD, with a smart look and a bright smile, says that he has already memorized all the materials they sent him, down to the very last detail. A classmate asks with a smile. Recently there are no workers from agencies in sight, to which she receives a positive answer. GD thinks about it, because if you think about it, all these people just disappeared in an instant, although they still continue to clog his personal messages. Some anti-fan of GD filed a complaint, outraged that what was so special about him that everyone was looking for him everywhere when he came to the university. The guy smiles brightly, saying that now, finally, they can eat in peace, and suggests celebrating this momentous occasion with spare ribs. But then an unfamiliar voice is heard from the side, and GD freezes in the same pose, with the same expression on his face, but a sad tear runs down his cheek. His team runs away, one of whose members is jokingly amazed. Wow, their leader is even going to skip dinner together. GD calls after them in a voice that is filled with pleading and tears, asking them to take him with them, because he also wants to taste the ribs. The man standing behind the guy, who gives off a dejected aura, apologizes and asks to at least listen to him for a minute. The student turns around abruptly, and with tears in his eyes, blurts out the question of who these people are, and why they won't even let him eat in peace. But his face turns surprised as these people turn out to be Salt and her manager, smiling sheepishly. GD falls silent, surprised, not knowing how best to proceed, and a familiar girl greets him politely. The student recalls that at their last meeting, she introduced herself as the new guy from the agency, Roy. And it was she who sang so well that time. The girl winks playfully and smiles, more stating than asking. They have met before, right? Later, when they all go together to a place where they can not only talk but also eat, GD asks why they came. The manager says they gave up on signing him after big agencies started moving in. GD raises his eyebrows in surprise, asking why they came to him then. Having found something on the smartphone, the man turns it to his interlocutor and asks if he has listened to his ward's third album. The girl is dejected when she hears words about the success of this album, and regrets that she did not do dance music earlier. The manager, meanwhile, asks if GD watched the dance video, and he looks at his interlocutor with confusion. The guy looks away and asks, puzzled, if he can be as frank as possible about this. The thing is, to be honest, he didn't manage to immerse himself and feel something like that. Salt and the manager are downcast. Overcoming his bewilderment, the man, with his usual politeness, asks a clarifying question, whether he can say for what reason. GD hesitates, stretching out the interjection and choosing words in her head so as not to offend her interlocutors even more. The first reason is that the video has a cute girl vibe, but the singer is no longer young. Salt indignantly bursts in. The second reason is revealing clothing that goes against the atmosphere. Some things are still acceptable, but others are categorically not. The manager, narrowing his eyes, expresses his suspicions, asking if it is possible that GD is bothered by the male actor's appearance. The guy, smiling puzzledly, lowers his head in a not entirely clear gesture and begins to speak. Thinking back on it, this man was not at all unattractive. But for a relationship where one party is desperately clinging, they were both equally unattractive, so it was impossible to dive in. It was so bad that people were talking about a song whose barrier to immersion was its video, which is easier to explain to those who know. The manager slams his hand on the armrest of his chair and lets his interlocutor know that he is going to get straight to the point. At his own risk, he asks the student to appear in the video for the next song. A bright smile lights up GD's face as he accepts the offer made to him. There is perfect silence all around. Neither the singer nor especially her manager expected such an answer from the guy. It was too simple. In one of the rooms of the shopping mall, Desdemona is asked if Salt is the only singer in the Roy Music Agency. The singer herself answers the interlocutor, confirming these words and saying that their agency is a small business, and the album cannot fail. The girl shyly asks GD not to cut ties with them just because they are a failed agency. The student laughs reservedly, which makes his interlocutor even more embarrassed, after which he promises not to do that. The smile grows even brighter when he adds that from the moment he heard Salt's voice, he never forgot. The guy thinks he is very handsome, and the girl, embarrassed 3 times, covers her heart with her hand, which has accelerated its rhythm. She gasps, covering her burning face with her hand, not understanding why it suddenly got so worked up, while Jiddy is extremely calm. He gets a call from Jidith, who apologizes to her little bear brother, reproaching him for turning her down and going on a date at the mall. Smiling kindly, the guy asks his pink pig not to use the phone at school, and this is not a date, but work. The interlocutor is surprised, asking again and expecting details. GD confirms these words and asks not to tell Aunt Minnie about this. Otherwise, he will have big problems. Literally 5 minutes later, the phone rings with a corresponding call, and the guy mentally scolds his charge. The appeal that Minnie shouts into the phone can be heard even in the store's sample room, and Salt turns around in fear at the voice. The woman screams, considering her son's actions a betrayal, because he accepted Roy's offer, so easily rejecting Signor's conditions. Mentally thinking that he knew this would happen, GD, trying to remain calm, replies that this is not a recruitment, but just an appearance in the video. Minnie instantly calms down, asking with interest why he decided to agree to such a proposal. Angela opens the glass door, noticing that her boss is so impatient that she couldn't even wait a little bit. The interlocutor, accepting the dossier from her hands, replies that it's all because she liked the song. Looking at the girl's photo and studying her profile, Minnie dives deep inside herself. Angela, standing nearby, doesn't say a word, not wanting to interrupt her boss's thoughts, but she is slightly worried about the whole situation. It seems she has found another way to increase sales. And then Minnie, with a sly smile, asks her son if he needs sponsorship. A man's hand holds out a phone with an open composition and politely asks to listen to this song. The first interviewee, after the audition, smiles and says that she is really good. The second person especially likes the high note at the end. It's impressive. And his daughter likes it too. The second woman, smiling sweetly, asks who the charming performer is who sings this song. And despite all this, no matter how a woman thinks about it, this level is definitely not worthy of sponsorship from such a famous company as Signor. Angela asks her interlocutor what could have possibly made the vice president make such a rash decision. Minnie stretches sweetly, and with a calm and confident smile on her lips answers, "It's a matter of her son's intuition and her own intuition." The woman gently nudges Angela forward, saying that since it's all decided, they should get approval. But Angela thinks the CEO will scold them. Some time passes and the day of filming Salt's music video arrives. All necessary props are brought into the room where everything will take place and are subsequently checked for serviceability. The man, puzzled, asks if Signor is really sponsoring all of this and they will have to pay a fine if it all fails. Angela denies it and suggests blowing up the car. They still have some budget left anyway. The interlocutor tries to gently say that this is too much. The man cups his hands like a megaphone and loudly announces to those around him, suggesting that the rehearsal begin. The actor is asked to maintain the feeling indicated on his face. He must remain calm, but at the same time maintain softness in his gaze. The director likes GD's performance, but Salt doesn't look quite right, and is asked to remove the hazel expression from her chin. The next scene is the creation of the nation's first love, and the director of this whole picture is again satisfied with the student's performance. Salt misses again. What she does is definitely cute, but this time it's unacceptable. And so throughout the entire rehearsal, GD is praised, and the girl is constantly corrected. There is nothing she does perfectly. Later, when a break is announced, the singer moves away to a place where she will be hidden from all eyes, and drops her face into her palms. Her partner approaches her just as she is saying that she considers herself trash, and a nervous smile appears on GD's lips. He encourages her, asking her not to worry about it too much. It's just that this director is too passionate about his work. He wants everything to be perfect. The guy touches on the topic of dance scenes, reminding that they have never been criticized for them. The girl agrees with these words but still feels uneasy about it. Then GD decides to do something different, he politely inquires, asking if he can give her advice. Salt's look becomes surprised. The guy suggests that his interlocutor think of him during the next shoot as grilled pork. The girl listens to him attentively. Salt's gaze turns surprised and GD is puzzled, thinking to himself that he seems to have gone too far. But the singer's gaze changes, and she abruptly pulls herself up short. urging herself to control her thoughts, otherwise she will gain weight again, which will be very inconvenient. Realizing that Salt is watching her weight, GD also notices that she has a talent for immersing herself in a role, and then offers her another solution. The girl should think of it as a guitar with the autograph of the person she really wants it from. GD asks, "This must be impressive, right?" And the singer, looking at her interlocutor with wide eyes, confirms this with fervor. And while the guy is training Salt, they are being watched, and the woman asks the cameraman to be sure to include this moment in the special edition. Later, they begin filming a separate scene with the singer, who looks thoughtfully out the window. The operator makes a surprised sound, and Jitty, standing behind him, also raises his eyebrows. The man doesn't understand what happened, but after the break, the atmosphere around this girl definitely changed. He asks the actor how he managed to achieve this. What advice needs to be given for such a dramatic change? Jitty's gaze changes to become calm, but he feels awkward about losing to the guitar. But he doesn't know that the girl doesn't represent a guitar with an autograph, but the person who plays it, and that person is none other than Jitty himself. Guessing what is happening to her, Salt thinks that this is her end, and meanwhile the director announces the end of the scene. The man can't believe they're finally filming the key scene as he looks at the storyboard. He becomes engrossed in the plot, expressing delight that the scene was merely the protagonist's imagination. The man asks Angela if she doesn't think this is rather sad for a Cinderella motif, and she replies that this is the signore's job. Namely, in the beautiful frame of this sad scene, the interlocutor is not entirely sure of the rationality of such a thing. He questions whether it makes sense to show Tim Jones's muse falling in love with someone like Salt. After all, no matter how much the signor adds, the most important thing in the end is a strong foundation. Angela gives the other man a disparaging look, asking if the inappropriate chatter is up to signore's standards. The man does not answer. His whole body immediately tenses up and he becomes puzzled. He becomes scared. The woman pauses and apologizes, and her interlocutor silently hurries to leave this terrible man. Angela looks away, remembering a conversation that took place not long ago. She informed her vice president that, whatever the case, she was against such a thing, because it was definitely not at the level of Signor's sponsorship. Looking at Salt's file, she asks what made her interlocutor make such a decision, and a sly smile appears on her lips. This is the same conversation during which Minnie responded that the reason was her own intuition and the intuition of her son. And now, when Angela looks at the girl around whom so many people are fussing, she begins to understand what her boss meant. The woman lets out a heavy breath, wondering if her own intuition had failed her. She takes her smartphone out of her pocket, making incredible efforts, and does what seems right. Angela enters into a dialogue with the VP and responds to a message that she should have responded to a long time ago, admitting her mistake. "I'm filming a test scene in which young people stand next to each other and look at the person in front of them with loving eyes." GD really looks embarrassed. He doesn't even have to put in much effort because this girl is beautiful. Salt experiences roughly the same thing, because she began to feel even earlier the changes that began to happen to her next to this guy. They hug each other incredibly tenderly, and a sincere smile full of happiness appears on the singer's lips. Even the director, seeing such genuine sincerity, wipes a tear from his face, proclaiming that everything turned out as well as possible. GD's heart is pounding wildly, and he orders him to calm down, because he thinks that the girl is hugging not him, but an expensive guitar. Salt feels similar feelings, but wonders if she could get another hug like that if she intentionally made a mistake now. And as soon as the director announces the end of the scene, the girl suggests reshooting, because she thinks she made a mistake, and GD feels defeated by the guitar. A week later, the scene becomes very popular as it is added to the special, deliberately embellished. GD asks how many views there are now, and her interlocutor replies that there are 900,000 on the video, and 200 on the backstage. The guy asks again, asking a surprised question, although he doesn't look that way at all, while simultaneously picking up the smartphone and doing something on it. Judith looks down at her phone again, and the next moment her gaze becomes surprised. The number of views has just reached 1 million. The girl asks how the man managed to do this, and he replies that he simply posted a selfie from the set. He admits that he took several photos on the set and, observing strategic pauses, posted them little by little, adding fuel to the fire. Judith jokingly remarks that it turns out that her little brother is not a teddy bear, but a real fox, and he grins, taking the initiative. At the same time, he is still a business student, and now he has completed the check. Each mistake is fraught with repetition 100 times. Horror immediately appears on the girl's face, becoming a stone mask for a long time, and in a doomed voice she expresses her unwillingness to do this. There are boxes on the floor, several close together, and someone nearby makes an absent voice, expressing delight. Salt imagined herself being kicked out for not paying rent, but she didn't think she would also get things because of her success. All thanks to GD Long. Looking at the screen of her smartphone with an open page of comments, the participants of which are negatively disposed towards her, the girl remembers. She accidentally overheard a conversation in which the participants were discussing whether there was any point in showing Gidi's love for the singer, and it would be fine if there was another one in her place. but one like Salt doesn't reach the level of Tim Jones's own muse. The girl contacts the CEO and he responds immediately, but she keeps thinking about how she and the guy are on different levels. She asks from now on to accept any proposals that concern her, because she intends to reach GD's level at all costs. There is half a month left until the next festival. The man angrily slams his fists on the table, asking what his interlocutor means. It's Jules, and he says, furiously and bewildered, that they can't sell alcohol in street stalls. The interlocutor relays rumors that the student council closed all the loopholes because too many people used them during the grace period. Jules asks how they can make money without selling alcohol, and they tell him that it is up to their executive team to decide. The senior student is called out to and turns around and asks GD why he is dressed like that, and GD says that too many people have started recognizing him. They bring him up to speed, and the guy asks again, disappointed, that it turns out they can't drink alcohol. But that was his dream. Jules exhales heavily, saying that by law anything over 1 degree cannot be sold, including even diluted drinks. But if you drink something that is less than 1%, what's the point of drinking it at all? It's better to drink juice. It dawns on GD, and he takes off his glasses to see better. He asks what about a bar where guests mix their own drinks? They can't sell, but that doesn't apply to customers. It is possible to negotiate with nearby stores to sell at a slightly higher price. The words are clarified, to negotiate on the condition of sales growth. You can give discounts on food to those who bought alcohol in the store. It turns out that it will no longer be alcohol, but a coupon for food. Jules doubts whether people will mix juice with alcohol, but his first friend has a different opinion. He likes the younger one's proposal. If you add lime juice and sugar, you get a mojito. The guy shares that he knows almost all the recipes for homemade cocktails, so he can take on something like this. Jules is surprised, asking if he was ever into cocktails, and he replies with a loving look that he learned this when he had a girlfriend. The interlocutor rolls his eyes, asking him not to be sad, because the experience becomes a part of us. The student is indignant, declaring that, in fact, everything worked out. But even the difference in price means losses, because it is not the same as selling directly. That's why they'll be selling mocktails, and since that's the case, their food might as well be highlighted. While others are frying pancakes, they can show off dishes that are a class above. Jules begins to get the picture, but he wonders who will cook all this. GD introduces himself, but the senior, remembering the recent event, is not attracted to the idea. He refuses in an angry tone, reminding the younger one how he managed to burn the noodles, and leaves the task of waiting tables to him. GD looks away in embarrassment, saying that he has trained a lot since then and has managed to improve his abilities. The guy mentally adds that after the shame of that trip, he simply couldn't stay away. There is a story about a cook. It begins with the fact that he had 2 students. One of them came to study because he was striving for wealth and fame that could surpass even his master. The second one decided to study simply because he wanted to master culinary knowledge and cook freely. One day the master called both students to him at once for a serious conversation. He told them that he was going to choose his successor, and this would all happen at the next competition. That day, something very unpleasant happened. The envy of the student, who was striving for wealth and fame, made itself known. The second apprentice's powerful culinary skills and love for cooking were of no help to him. This young man lost his sight and was kicked out of the restaurant. After this, he fell asleep again and again in tears and sadness. Life seemed unlovable to him, because he could no longer do what he loved with all his soul. And yet, every time he opened his clouded eyes, he couldn't think of anything else but cooking. So he decided to start all over again. Julian looks at his interlocutor with a skeptical look, asking without much interest what next. He gets chills when he sees his friend blindfold himself like the blinded apprentice cook in the parable. Leaning forward, Julian asks GD not to tell him what he's thinking, and he confirms his guess that the guy is going to do the same. The clock hanging on the wall shows 7 o'clock. Julian pretends to call the mental hospital, informing the employee that his friend has gone crazy. GD is tense and puzzled, but remains silent. He asks his friend to just trust him and enjoy the game. But he is uneasy. He can't just play when a blindfolded person has a knife in his hand. He thinks about calling his parents. Periodically glancing at GD's back, the guy checks to see if everything is okay with him. And so far, surprisingly, he's doing okay. Still, that doesn't take away from the fact that Julian is uneasy about what's happening. GD forbade him to help. But the knife in his hand is incredibly frightening, because even the most harmless thing is now dangerous. The guy involuntarily shudders as an electric impulse runs through his body. A short sound also reflexively escapes from his mouth, because the body cannot help but react to an external stimulus in the form of a cut. The guy licks his finger, thinking that he needs to be careful, because if he cuts something off, everything will go to hell. He stretches out his hand, but suddenly forgets where he put the knife. Because blinded by pain, he did it by inertia. GD says the name of the object out loud, and soon it appears in his hand. The guy is amazed. His face reflects joy when it seems to him that the knife jumped into his hands on its own due to skill. And a friend stands next to him with a hunted look. He says out loud that Julian must see everything with his own eyes, and tears begin to roll from his eyes, because he has already seen everything. To unlock the skill, Fire Lord, you need to fulfill 3 conditions. Peel and trim 100 vegetables. Second on the list is cutting the peeled fruits. And the final condition for unlocking the skill is cooking. As he cuts through yet another vegetable, Jitty begins to feel the rhythm with which the knife hits the cutting board. At the same time, the real aroma of fresh vegetables awakens the sense of smell, slightly dulled by ultra-processed products. Now peeling garlic is something completely insignificant for him. It is a skill of the kind that improves in real time. Jitty now fully understands what it means to say that patience and hard work will overcome everything. Only the one who eats a lot, cuts a lot, and fries a lot can be called a real cook. And the one who commands the fire also commands the cooking. Finishing what he had planned, the guy finally moves the blindfold that covered his eyes to his forehead and lets out a heavy breath. And then he turns his gaze to his work. Everything he needs is there, cut into perfect rows, especially compared to the initial level. Julian comes up to him with capillaries in his eyes bursting from overexertion and asks if he's finished. He replies that he hasn't. He offers Jitty something to eat, and his interlocutor asks what's wrong with his eyes. Julian replies that the onion got in. Jitty says that everything will be ready in an hour. After an hour, there are incredibly appetizing-looking dishes on the table. A decent restaurant can compete with these dishes. At the sight of such an incredible meal, Julian begins to salivate. He cannot wait to taste each of the dishes. Suddenly he is surprised, turning to his friend and asking if he really prepared all this with his own hands. Jitty is surprised by this question, because the guy was next to him all this time, and, wanting to find out the verdict as soon as possible, he urges his friend to try. Julian lifts the spoon to his mouth and slowly sips the contents. And then it feels like an electric shock goes through him. The taster starts to shudder all over, and his friend asks him what he can say about the taste of the dish. Julian thinks the dish is excellent, adding that he has a real feast in his mouth right now, and it turns out that Jitty Long is still in the game. The guy asks his interlocutor if he has that famous rat hidden somewhere, and they have a small argument about its name. Having eaten his fill, Julian falls to the floor, saying that he came in vain, because with this success he will become a real picky eater. The interlocutor asks not to say this nonsense, and from that moment on, day after day begins to fly by until the long-awaited festival. Flying literally millimeters from the opponent's face, the tennis ball hits his side of the court and bounces upward. The girls sitting in the spectator seats are jubilant, rooting for their favorite, chanting his name. Jitty smiles at the support he receives, and as he pulls away with a score of 40-0. It's nice, but also embarrassing. But he remembers the words of his senior friend, who instructed him to do this for the sake of sales success. Gathering his strength, Jitty, hiding his eyes, turns to the girls, and they fall silent in amazement, listening with all their ears. Raising his hand, he suggests that they have dinner together with the entire faculty of management, and the jubilation becomes even louder. The head of the economics department swears, already perfectly understanding from the speech who is its author, and Jules adds fuel to the fire. He asks if he is really jealous, but there is no reason to be jealous. They will steal all their money, and time continues to mercilessly approach evening. The critic, tasting the dish served, notes that he has no problems with the taste. But then a question arises. For what reason, then, is there not a single visitor in the tent of the Faculty of Food Industry? But this special guest star chef from the university, Coraline Palmer, understands even without an answer why this misunderstanding occurred. But the girls still give hints, wanting to be helpful to such a celebrity. They say that it's all about Jitty Long. One of the students explains that he is a first-year student from the management department, and she is sure that everyone came running to see him, because she wants to see him herself. The woman calls this excuse stupid, and the girl, looking for something on her phone, turns the screen to the boss, offering to take a look. For a while, there is absolute silence around, and the woman decides to act decisively, taking everything into her own hands. She says that this man cannot win, because she will deal with him personally. The students try to stop her, asking her not to do anything. The woman screams, ordering them to let her go, and says that she is already tired of looking at the faces of these girls. People from the crowd standing nearby begin to turn around in shock and fear at the woman's scream. Recognizing the star personality, the students, looking puzzled, offer to let her go ahead. But the woman calmly refuses. One of the girls expresses confusion as to why the number of male visitors has decreased, while the other asks to tell Jitty that she loves him. As she moves forward, the woman thinks that she cannot refuse them, but her gaze expresses enviable concentration, and smells float around. Gracefully placing a cocktail on the table, the person playing the role of a waiter asks what the guest would like to order. The customer places an order and comments on the waste of juice. Since it is not necessary to squeeze a whole piece of lime, the student is amazed. He asks how she knew, and the chef replies, by smell, because for a cook the nose is as important as the tongue. When the order is ready and has already been delivered, the woman, with a businesslike look, deliberately slowly gets ready to taste it. She takes just one piece and puts it in her mouth, savoring and analyzing the taste. Suddenly the woman stops, interrupting her own meal, and drops her hands onto her knees. She picks up the chopsticks again and brings them to the dish, but hovers over it without grabbing anything. Emotions take over, and Coraline grips the cutlery with force, breaking it and smashing it into pieces. A waiter standing nearby asks the guests if they like the dishes. One of the girls answers that they found them very tasty. The second one doesn't have time to say anything, because another visitor addresses the student from behind, and although she is polite, her voice is cold. The student is frightened when he sees the face of the woman who turns towards him at the moment. And she, like an angry fury, throws out the broken sticks, and in a stern tone orders that the one who prepared this dish be brought to her immediately. The hero of the occasion is busy in the kitchen, not suspecting anything, just adding mustard sauce to the next dish. The students closest to him enjoy it, even just watching it being cooked. They would remain silent about the unique taste of what they ordered. GD is also caught up in the process, having managed to get a taste for it, and the approaching voice is amazed. Just look at this impudent fellow. Someone asks their manager if they can go to the festival, since there is still plenty of time before the concert, but he refuses. The man asks her with a puzzled look why she needed to go there at all, and he himself suggests that it was to look at Jitty Long. It was really obvious, but the man tries to appeal to his interlocutor's reason, saying that this could cause a scandal. The prepared dish radiates the desire to eat it, and this is not just like that. The chef is the first among cooks, among professionals, and therefore nothing should distract him from the process or hinder him. And yet, those students who were supposed to become masters of their craft were hindered by some amateur who sold his honor for pennies. GD approaches the table he was called to and asks in a polite tone if the visitor is his. Coraline begins her remark with a scream, sharply confirming the words of her interlocutor. She continues out loud, expressing a desire to look at the scoundrel. The student freezes, his mouth open, and looks at his interlocutor silently, with puzzled bewilderment. She, too, is slightly at a loss. She remembers the photo she was shown and realizes that the person in it and the one in front of her are one and the same person. Coraline, puzzled, asks in a calmer tone if the student really did prepare this dish. And, without waiting for an answer, she asks her interlocutor to show her his hand. He quickly takes off his glove, asking her to wait a little. When a woman takes someone else's hand in hers and it turns out to be covered in cuts and bandages, Coraline thinks, she doesn't believe that this baby, who can't even cut an apple, will be able to cook anything worthwhile. The woman, looking up at her interlocutor, suddenly asks if the guy has a cold, to which he answers negatively. She asks the next question, asking if he is by any chance the head chef, and the older men look out from behind the door with concern. GD denies it, but in turn enthusiastically notes that her interlocutor is outstanding, because the aroma of food and cooking emanates from her body and hands. He points out that she doesn't cook authentic cuisine, but fusion, and notes that today she cooked salmon with yogurt. Coraline asks if he has a nose like a dog. He replies that he has a well-developed sense of smell, and allows him to address her informally. GD admits that this is the first time he has smelled such a scent, and expresses a desire to visit her restaurant. The woman is puzzled. She tells him to quit school right now and comes into her kitchen, and is going to buy him a plane ticket right now. Salt, who was spying on the unfolding picture and eavesdropping on this conversation, held back as long as she could, but nothing lasts forever. She runs up to GD and, grabbing his hand tightly, forbids him to do this, asking where this woman is going to take this guy. And only now does the girl realize that she has done something very stupid by giving in to emotions. They call her out immediately. A man standing nearby asks if she is the same singer who came in second place. The girl tenses up, not knowing what to say, and her manager calls out to her from behind, calling her by name and waving his cap that has fallen off his head. The man also understands that he said something stupid, and Salt slowly turns around, but it's too late. They are gradually starting to recognize her. The people around her immediately take out their smartphones, wanting to capture the celebrity, and the girl takes a few reflexive steps back. They not only take pictures, but also send this outrageous news to all the forums they know. And the girl, with bated breath, finally becomes convinced that she is no longer here incognito. A voice is heard from the outside. GD saves her by saying that he won't work as a singer even though they have become good friends. Is it really that hard to understand? He winks conspiratorially at the girl so that only she can see, and continues to play out the performance. Salt looks at the guy with flattered gratitude, and in that very moment a plan is born in her head. She picks up his initiative. Asking what the point is then, if he doesn't do anything for her out of friendship, GD replies similarly. Even though they are friends, he won't become a singer. Those watching this picture begin to reluctantly believe that these two are just friends, and they become completely uninterested. Coraline asks with a displeased look why the guy does not agree to such conditions. Salt answers for him. He still has to serve, and he also has to perform on shows. He will have to do an incredible amount of things. The boss asks why the girl is so worried about all this. She just said that she thinks he is courageous, or was she wrong? Salt corrects her by saying that she called him a male friend, and a flattered GD asks what business the girl is really there for. Smiling, although it is not visible, the singer replies that today she is performing at the festival, and the student council made it possible. GD asks why she came to see him, and the girl slyly replies that drinking tastes better with good music. But since she was caught, this won't work. And the guy, saying that they can try something else, asks her to wait while he talks to the crowd standing nearby. They confirm his words, and Jitty asks for forgiveness, saying that he thought a lot, but believes that he should not sign the contract. They ask him not to say that and to at least listen to the terms of the contract first, and the manager notes that his charge got off very lightly. A voice is heard nearby, and a hand is raised from the crowd, its owner apologetically drawing attention to himself. He asks Jitty with a provocative smile if he can at least find out the reason for the refusal. And thoughts flash through the guy's head. He becomes interested in who this person is. It is clear that he is a foreigner, but the man's pronunciation is perfect. The blonde reaches into the inside pocket of his jacket, saying that he forgot to introduce himself, and hands his interlocutor a business card. His name is Damien. And then the fair-haired man explains the purpose of his visit to this country. He is here to lift Jitty to the very top. The guy is silent, looking at his interlocutor with a calm gaze, and he hurries him, repeating his words about wanting to hear the reason for the refusal. Jitty exhales heavily with a look of hopelessness, saying that he refuses because he might betray his trust too. Coraline intervenes, saying that if she signs the contract, she will have to do things she doesn't want to do, like advertise Signore's competitors. The summit, for which he will have to betray his principles, is not worth it. But Damien replies that he is not asking him to give up his principles. Moreover, it is possible to earn truly huge amounts of money from this. Now Signore branches in neighboring countries offer $2,000 an hour. The man asks if the same applies to this country. But he did not come to offer Jitty such money, remembering that he was told to double the amount named. Damien asks what about it, and there is silence for a while. The tension in the air is almost physically palpable, and the boss, like the others, is waiting with curiosity for the situation to be resolved. But the emotions experienced, like facial expressions, are different for everyone. Salt, for example, froze in a stone mask of bewilderment and fear. But it is not only celebrities and influential people who are awaiting the outcome. Ordinary mortals have also become unwitting observers of this scene. Finally, Jitty speaks up, giving an approximate amount. But that's not what people around him think, and so the guy explains that this is the price of raising one child in this country. Looking down sadly, Jitty continues, saying that his parents raised him on an amount that is far less than the minimum. Money is certainly good, but he wants to earn more than he does now. The guy recalls a conversation with his father that very day. But with all this, the student does not want to earn money by causing pain to his loved ones. Damien puts the back of his hand to his lips in a thoughtful gesture, while Jitty continues asking a question. Wouldn't he betray those who treated him well, and prepared him for this if he became a celebrity on a wave of fame, completely unprepared? Salt says thoughtfully that she would be disappointed if the CEO locked her in the basement because she didn't bring in money and ran after others. The manager pulls her back, and Jitty, smiling, draws the line by saying that his answer is this. He politely apologizes, saying that they were expecting something different, and he understands that perfectly well, and immediately switches gears, pointing in the direction of the exit. The men who stepped aside call the guy an impudent son of a bitch and are outraged that he even dared to chase them away. One of the company asks Damien what he thinks about this, since he has been silent for a long time, and he has also disgraced himself more than anyone else. But the blonde remains silent, although a smile plays on his lips, and his eyes look as if he is deeply thinking about something. The next moment the smile becomes even wider, and the man begins to chuckle. This world is strewn with stones. Damien Tommaso's hand extends his business card to his interlocutor and potential contractor. Some of the candidates accept the business proposal, but others refuse. All of these people represent a metaphorical image of those very stones, and only 100% of this entire set may actually turn out to be valuable. The miner who digs up such stones, and the jeweler who processes and cuts them so that their true value shines through. Damien Tommaso is exactly that kind of person because he is a casting director. Of course, there are those whose talent is comparable to precious stones, but the character of such people is actually worse than a plastic fake. But there is nothing to be done. Any precious stone wants to be treated accordingly. Damien didn't come to this country to offer that guy such mind-boggling sums. People like him are always dissatisfied with their current situation, so there is no point in talking about trust anymore. That's where the bargaining ends. Damien thought exactly that, but everything changed. His expression became serious. The man was called out. They ask him what he is going to do. The blonde tilts his head questioningly to the shoulder, clarifying what the interlocutor is talking about. The point is, what just happened? Damien is asked how he is going to hook up with that son of a bitch Jitty Long. He is interested himself. Did this guy really take the announced amount as an insult? After all, she had to prove that potential partners can be trusted. These people were not only blind, but slippery, and thought only of how to roll them in the mud. He knew that they were not capable of cutting a precious stone. Damien can't stand it, asking to stop talking about this topic, not intending to get involved in such vile things. The interlocutor is amazed. Jitty Long's contract with Signore is for 3 years, meaning he will be released at age 23. And this means only one thing. It's time to get to work seriously. And such thoughts arise not only in Damien's head, but also in the student's own, along with anticipatory smiles. Sitting in her office, Minnie asks Angela if she has seen this article. and her interlocutor asks what article she is talking about. Understanding what was being said, the woman replies that she saw it and that she thinks it is very childish to attack a 20-year-old guy. She doesn't even see the point in trying to find even a shred of truth there and asks if she should do anything about it. Minnie says no, everything changed and went downhill. After some YouTuber released a fact-checking video, Angela expresses pity, but the woman finds it strange. Everything happened very quickly, despite the fact that Jidi is talented. He is not a singer with crowds of fans. It all looks like it's all a setup, Angela counters, believing that there's no need to get worked up about it so much. Apparently the guy just got himself a superfan. Damien smiles contentedly, saying out loud that the deposit was successfully sent. If this happened when Jidi was in high school, that means it was 2 years ago. But the sneakers came out 2 months ago, so they're fake. In short, someone paid some school kid to Photoshop his face to add Jidi's to his own, and who needs a license anyway? The YouTuber thanks the anonymous person for the information provided and asks viewers to like and subscribe to his channel. That very day, Jidi says that money is of course good, but he is going to earn more than he currently does, and he continues with an extremely serious expression on his face, saying that this is not all, and there is one important nuance here, and showing this video to Jidi himself, who is incredibly embarrassed. Jules and several other students repeat the memorized words unanimously. The guy asks his friends to stop making fun of him, and one of the seniors calls him cool, adding that he is a source of national pride. With a satisfied smile, Jules gives him another compliment, asking how he managed to live in such a way that in the past, he never hurt even a fly. Jidi answers him mentally, "Such is the life of a nerd gamer," and the elder's face suddenly changes, becoming surprised. He informs his junior that his nose is bleeding. On the surface of the university bench there is a large pack of napkins in a funny box. Jules asks his interlocutor if he's been overloading himself lately. He has terrible bruises under his eyes. He waves his hand. And saying that he has done practically nothing, Jidi begins to list a very large list of what he has been doing lately. Night comes into its own, enveloping the city in its dark shawl. Jidi remarks that he could have taken the bus, to which his interlocutor replies that it is not difficult for him, since they are on the same route anyway. Saying goodbye, the senior student asks the junior to take better care of himself, and he agrees, smiling politely. Looking after him, Jidi notices that Jules drives a very nice car. How many hours of part-time work does it take to buy one like that? If you remember, it was this man who was the first to say that the first-year student's suit at the entrance ceremony was expensive. Jidi thinks about the fact that the senior student is the son of the owner of a very prestigious building, but immediately catches himself. The digital clock shows the numbers 4 o'clock in the morning. Jidi, looking exhausted, closes the lid of her laptop, saying that the paper is finally written. He recalls Minnie's words, asking him to make time because he had to fly to Paris in June to see Tim and the other CEOs. Jidi says that it would be better if the professor arranged an exam. The grade on the essay is not a good prospect, because he does not want to devote less time to his hobby. He regrets that he can't sleep for a couple of hours, and get enough sleep for at least 6, and then an interesting idea comes to the guy's head. The next day, the man greets Jidi with open arms, calling her by name in a joyful tone. He says that the boy looks very much like his father, and he, smiling politely, remarks that they say that sons take after their mother. The man clarifies that it turns out that Jidi wants to work in the hospital warehouse again, to which he receives an affirmative answer, and they express gratitude to him. Those who worked there before were dishonest, and were caught stealing medicine and fired, which made him very nervous, causing him to suffer from insomnia. Even though he is a doctor and has to buy his insomnia medication from a nearby hospital, Jidi feels uneasy when he sees her like that. But the man's face breaks into his usual smile as he says he is glad that a student from such a prestigious university will take on the job. Jidi starts to laugh nervously instead of answering, thinking that he just needs to master the skill he has his eye on. When a girl passes by, the reception desk starts to emotionally call her, calling her Dana and actively attracting her attention. The administrator asks if she has heard that they now have a cute guy working in the warehouse. They say he is the nephew of the department manager. They answer that they heard, and the administrator adds, saying that the interlocutor will be surprised at how beautiful his face is, a skeptical response. As Dana approaches, the receptionist continues, saying that this guy even has a nice name, and calls him. The interlocutor stops, looking at her colleague and clarifying that this guy is a cute chubby guy. She denies it, dreamily saying that Jidi is slim and handsome. She wonders what will happen if she starts flirting with him. The interlocutor jokes cynically. A quarrel is heard, one of the participants of which calls her interlocutor a witch, and says that this is why she cannot get married. They tell her that she can't get her license because she tries to win any argument with jokes. A girl rushes to Dana, hugging her tightly. With tears in her eyes, she turns to the doctor and says that she wants a cola, but the nurse won't let her drink it. Looking at Dana's serious face, the girl asks her for permission. The cold shell collapses and the woman's lips stretch into a smile. Squatting down, Dana says that the cola gives her a bad stomachache. She suggests drinking 100 bottles of this drink, once the girl gets better. But the latter wants it now. The administrator comes up to them and says that this patient is a demon in the flesh, The doctor pulls her back. Taking the crying girl in her arms, Dana wonders who this mysterious, handsome guy named Jidi Long could be. The young woman's gaze fills with something resembling sadness. This name seems suspiciously familiar to her, because at the edge of consciousness beats a significant memory from a past life. 3 years ago, Dana King was a pediatric resident, and she cried where no one could find her or see her weakness. Next to her sat Jidi, who had not yet succumbed to his striking modifications, and tried to provide the girl with silent support. Realizing that this was not enough, the boy spoke up, but did not really know what to say. Dana then asked him, asking just one word, why? She looked at her interlocutor with red tear-stained eyes and asked a more detailed question. She was getting on his nerves too. Jidi politely apologized, evasively replying that the warehouse had been his place even before she came here. But despite this, the girl told him to leave, causing confusion on the face of the then still completely insecure teenager. Thinking that he was powerless in the current situation, and that no one would want to listen to him, he actually got up from his seat in order to leave. Dana's inner self whistled, noticing that she had just snapped at a person she was seeing for the first time in her life, a schoolboy. But there could have been something else here. The girl could have snapped at this little man precisely because he was a schoolboy. Does she really need someone to take her emotions out on just like her older friend? Dana recalled the hurtful words that had not left her head since that moment. She was asked rhetorically if she really didn't want to become a doctor. It's high time for her to come to her senses and stop whining. Or is this her specialty, her life credo? It's incredibly annoying. The girl suddenly shuddered, raising her head and began to move her sleepy and inflamed eyes around, trying to understand where she was. Leaning on her arm, she wondered out loud how long she had been asleep, and felt a rustling sound nearby. Dana's astonished gaze shifted from the space in front of her, and her expression became one of surprise at what she saw. Next to the hand lay sweets and some kind of folded piece of paper, reminiscent of origami, with a word laid out from the letters. The message was congratulatory and said that she had found the lucky candies, and if she ate them all in order, fortune would smile on her. Overwhelmed with emotion, Dana could think of nothing better to do than to find fault with the teenager's mistake. After all, luck is spelled differently. However, after that incident, every time the girl felt sad, she went to the warehouse. There was no cute fat teenager, but there was always candy or a drink with a misspelled good luck word and a note. And Dana didn't cry anymore. She took one of the pieces of paper and with a smile began to write something on it. So they began to communicate with notes, and the first thing the girl learned from them was the name of the fat bespectacled man, and then apologized to him for the last time. And Dana politely corrected her interlocutor in the exchange of notes, introducing him to the correct spelling, and he admitted that he was not very good at English. In the present tense, already a doctor, she thinks that she managed to hold out for so long only thanks to those few days. The interlocutor is asked if this is what she was looking for, and she answers in agreement, accepting the box from his hands and saying that she could have found it on her own. However, with a smile, Jidi gently counters, saying that it is not about that at all, but about the fact that this is his job. There was a guy who was cursed with fatigue. He dreamed of becoming a doctor and studied constantly until he was completely tired. But this man's dreams came to an end when his overworked father fell on a construction site and ended up in hospital. One day this guy thought about the fact that doctors and nurses, interns, and even the most ordinary patients get tired. Why do people need to sleep so much to get rid of fatigue? And do they really have to be slaves to sleep all their lives? Suddenly curious about what a dream is, this guy decided to go on a journey to remove the impending curse. This story is called Skill, faster than everyone, not like everyone else. The first condition for unlocking it is to be in the hospital for more than 6 hours at a time for a week. The second condition is reading 20 books on sleep and fatigue research, medications, and massage. Jidi looks thoughtfully and puzzledly at the bottles of medicine in front of him, noting that there had been no problems up until now. But in addition to the previous 2 conditions for unlocking this skill, a third one must also be completed. But the guy decides to finish his work first. Walking down the hallway, Jidi smiles and thinks that it seems Dana didn't recognize him, or simply doesn't remember him. The next moment the guy feels that walking is no longer as easy as before, and his clothes are tightening. The student turns around. A little girl dressed in a hospital gown asks, looking at her interlocutor with genuine and anticipatory interest, who he is. Jidi sits down to be on the same level with her and asks her name with a smile. The child answers, "The father forbids telling his name to strangers." The guy asks if it's okay to approach strangers, to which the girl replies that it's okay, because he's as handsome as a puppy. She asks if he is a celebrity, and Jidi shamelessly begins to list all his births, present, and future. The girl winces, admitting that she came here because she has a headache and feels very bad. The guy tenses up. So he ended up stuck in the hospital, letting a sick child play with his phone and missing his bus. Jidi asks the girl playing the game with a satisfied look who she is waiting for, her friend, to which she receives the answer that she has no friends. The guy asks if she wants some candy. He just happens to have a lot of them. Remembering that they held an offering ceremony in front of the warehouse, the girl looks at her interlocutor with wide eyes, momentarily distracted from the game and informing him that she cannot eat sweets. She continues, surprising her interlocutor, by saying that she has a kitten living in her tummy. The girl asks if he doesn't know about the cat in her stomach, and he asks another question, suggesting that the girl might be mistaken. The naive child continues, explaining the words with a smart look. If she eats bad food, the cat will be indignant and scratch her stomach. GD now understands what is being discussed, concluding that the girl has a stomach ulcer, but the comparison with a cat touches him. The doctor says that this is a very bad cat, but Juliet is not discouraged, because her mother asks from heaven every day for her that the cat will become good. She asks, continuing to play enthusiastically, if her mother isn't wonderful, and Jiddy's expression and mood change. But he pulls himself together and gently ruffles the child's hair, confirming her words and adding that her mother is very wonderful. Soon they hear hurried, heavy footsteps approaching them. A man heading towards them shouts the child's name in a worried tone, and the child turns a questioning look at him. And the very next moment, the girl's eyes flash with the delight that is characteristic only of children. After her appeal, Jiddy realizes that this man is her dad, and he awkwardly opens his arms for a hug with a puzzled look. The girl jumps up and hurries to her father and asks what he is doing here. The man apologizes, calling his daughter a princess, because she didn't fall asleep while waiting for him. Dana approaches Jiddy and asks why he is still here, and he says that it is late. The buses are not running. He stays in the hospital overnight, and a little later his nimble fingers are quickly tapping away on the keyboard of his laptop. The guy is finally convinced that the buses are not running, but he does not despair. He can do his homework in this place. The girl's words about her mother involuntarily come to mind, and he feels uneasy again. His fingers involuntarily freeze over the keyboard, as the guy becomes deeply immersed in his thoughts. It didn't look like this was the girl's first time, so he wondered how many times this little girl had waited alone like this. The guy takes the smartphone in his hand, and looking at the screen with a dejected look, thinks about whether he can help this child in any way. His gaze involuntarily falls on the search queries that remained in history after the phone was in the hands of a child, and Jiddy begins to think about her painful thoughts, while the man and Dr. Dana stand next to the hospital bed. In it, Juliet is peacefully snoring, hugging her teddy bear, and her father is asking in a barely audible voice if she will be okay. The woman replies that there is no perforation or stenosis, so there is no reason for serious concern. The bleeding has stopped, and the girl is better. Looking at the man with experienced eyes, Dana politely asks if he himself needs treatment. She lists the symptoms that torment him: burnout, rapid weight loss, insomnia, and if nothing is done, depression will set in. But he is also responsible for Juliet's health, which means he has even more reasons to devote time to his own health, and the man turns away. He leaves these words unanswered, and a little later, the doctor accompanying him asks him to drive more carefully after the man gets into the car. She hands her little patient's father some familiar-looking candy and asks him to eat it on the way. The man is surprised when he reads the word, and the woman explains that it is a spell that brings good luck. Involuntarily, memories of those happy moments when she met Jiddy and spent time together arise in her mind. Later, the interlocutor cannot help but remark that this is the first time she has seen Dr. King escort someone home. With a sly smile, the nurse looks into her colleague's face, asking, "So, this is what kind of guys she likes." Dana becomes irritated, asking if she knows that if she fails the exam the first time, she will have to quit the hospital. The interlocutor is indignant, saying that it would be better for her to make an offering to the spirits on her behalf than to croak, saying such terrible things. Looking at the photo keychain in her car, Juliet's father's eyes are suddenly reminded of an unpleasant memory. His wife died when their daughter was still a baby, and from that moment on, the man had an incredibly difficult time, and that's not counting the mental pain. The only thing left to him after his dear wife was this little girl. But she both brought him joy and caused him great pain, reminding him of his broken heart. And yet he loved her no matter what. And right now he makes a promise to his dear that he will do everything to protect their baby. A male voice announces that he is finishing work and leaving, and the manager solicitously asks the man to be careful on the way. But he, passing by, stops, asking if his colleague has been working too much lately. Not much time has passed since the funeral. Smiling casually, the man says that this is precisely the reason why he must work even harder. He feels the need to earn money because his daughter should wear the most beautiful clothes and eat the most delicious food. To avoid being branded as a motherless child, children admire Juliet's new bag, which is also branded. Having heard from someone, the girl boasts that it is written in English, and how to read this inscription. The girls are amazed and ask what it means. Julieta suddenly declares that her dad said that if she carries this bag with her, everyone will take her into account. The teacher laughs, thinking that this is for sure, because this clutch with a handle is a limited edition of a famous brand and costs several million. Night falls and the woman sighs sadly, noticing that Juliet's father is late today. The little girl herself doesn't even think about such trifles, remaining the last child in the kindergarten, diligently drawing a picture for her dad. And at that very moment, the first warning signs appear, foreshadowing the development of a stomach ulcer. When the girl is finally picked up from kindergarten and she and her father are walking down the street, he asks her what tasty things she would like today. Julieta shows her father a drawing, saying that she drew their family while she was waiting for him. The man asks if he can see it. At that time, they were happy, and the man then really fed his daughter delicious food and dressed her beautifully, fulfilling everything she asked. At those moments, he was truly happy, not thinking at all that anything could interfere with their idol. And at first, the man did not see how the girl sometimes grabbed her stomach with a puzzled look, and her face displayed extreme anxiety. But when Juliet called him in a weak voice, his face sank and his whole body tensed, and he turned a frightened look to his little girl. The girl fell to her knees from helplessness. Because she could no longer bear such terrible pain, her father asked her, sitting down next to her, what was wrong with her. And when his daughter did not answer him, the man, tightly hugging the little body, turned with a plea to his dear wife, asking for protection. After all, she was the only thing he had left, and she loved her parents so much, even though one of them was no longer with them. And the man was not ashamed of his tears, because the only thing that worried him now was the health of his beloved daughter. He opens his eyes and sits up in bed, wiping his cheeks wet with tears, and, unable to hold back a sob, utters words of apology to his wife. The girl sits meekly on the bed with an IV in one hand and a teddy bear under the other, looking thoughtfully into the space in front of her. The little girl thinks that this place is incredibly quiet and boring, despite the fact that she is in a general ward. The girl hugs her stuffed animal tighter, expressing her wish for her dad to come soon. She hears a disgruntled voice outside the room, repeating that if visitors and patients become uncomfortable, they will need to leave immediately. A familiar male voice agrees to this condition, and the very next moment someone she did not expect to see enters Juliet's room. The store cashier, in a feignedly cheerful and polite tone, asks the customer to come back again. Juliet's father walks down the street and, looking at a bag with ears sticking out of it, remembers his daughter's words about her wanting a rabbit. At the same time, he notes that he hasn't taken a day off for a long time, doesn't even remember the last time he saw the girl during the day, and is going to warn her about the visit. There is no ringing tone. Instead, a robotic voice notifies that the subscriber cannot answer this call, and he suggests leaving a message after the signal. The man's hand begins to tremble, and fear and anxiety rise from within, emerging. The man throws away the cursed package with the toy and rushes headlong to the hospital, fearing that something irreparable could have happened to his girl. Finally, he ends up in the hospital, and stops only to catch his breath, but becomes even more worried. He notices that a lot of nurses have gathered near the door leading to Juliet's room, and they are excitedly talking about something. As the man gets closer to the speakers, he can make out voices. Many of the medical staff think that something is not very good. Words, at such a young age, finally make a man's face disappear, and everything inside him break. But he doesn't want to believe it. He can't stay outside when something like this happens to his little girl, and the grief-stricken father flies straight towards the astonished girls. He pushes them aside, bursting into the room and shouting his baby's name, tears ready to spill from his eyes at any moment. But in vain, because the cheerful sounds of the guitar reach his ears. And once inside, the man sees a very funny sight, a young man playing the guitar and little kids singing along with him. Juliet's father's gaze becomes completely exhausted as he wonders what is going on here. The nurse standing nearby says with a smile that this is just wonderful. This guy is only 20 years old. He is still very young. Later, handing the man a glass, the interlocutor clarifies, asking if he was scared. But no answer is required. Everything is clear without words. Dana says that Judy works part-time in a warehouse, and the girl asked him to play the guitar for her. The interlocutor is perplexed. He doesn't understand how this happened at all, to which he receives a brief introduction to the situation. The girl was looking for a video on his phone. Dana notes that he was only supposed to play one song so as not to disturb the other patients, but even they didn't want to let him go. A condescending smile blossoms on the man's exhausted face, and he says that he would have done exactly the same in their place. And all because this man managed to give his daughter a smile that the man had missed for a long time. It had been too long since he had heard his daughter's sincere laughter, in which there was no trace of pain. And today, it happened. The man looks thoughtfully ahead for a while in silence, as if gathering his strength for his next words. And indeed, the next moment he bashfully lowers his eyes, turning to the doctor. The caring father is scared, feeling hopeless. He doesn't even know what to do with Juliet after she is discharged, fearing a repeat of history. Dana says that he asked the wrong question. He should ask not what would be best for the girl, but what would be best for himself. Julieta is a very brave girl. She is not afraid to be in an unfamiliar hospital, and she tolerates pain well. Her father asks how she knows this. Dana continues, saying that no matter how much pain a man was in, Juliet always smiled as if nothing terrible had happened. And if her dad doesn't break down, everything will be fine with the baby too. The man is stunned by this simple truth. As if in passing, the doctor asks the man not to think about the fact that even if he dies of exhaustion, his daughter will receive a huge inheritance. Juliet's father is embarrassed, asking if these thoughts are really written on his face. The young woman exhales heavily, saying that she knows very well that parents like him think in a similar direction. Dana understands that her father expressed his love by investing in his child with material goods, which was the reason for the rare visits. However, this can have an extremely negative impact on children's health and lead to the formation of bad eating habits. Dana hands her interlocutor the phone with the keypad open for dialing a number and continues. That is why she is going to always be there and help the single father, so that he does not make similar mistakes in the future. She allows him to call at any time, but the man is puzzled, believing that this will put too much of a burden on the doctor. And he thanks her, but Dana retorts, smiling and repeating that he can contact her whenever he wants. A nurse standing in the corridor near the door of the room where the two are located giggles in anticipation of new gossip and reasons for teasing. As she continues on her way to do her business, she hums something, thinking about Dana destroying the entire hospital kitchen. It is approaching evening, and the sun is already leaning very close to the horizon, promising its sunset. A taxi is racing through the Twilight City at high speed. Oddly enough, the roads are deserted today. Looking out the window, Giddy thinks with a puzzled face that he eventually promised to come visit them again, although there is no room in the schedule. But he agrees to this if in return he gets the desired skill. And a smile appears on the young man's face. All that remains is to fulfill the last condition. The taxi driver notices the pallor of his passenger, who is thinking about not the most pleasant things, and asks how he feels, whether he is really seasick. Giddy decides to ask the only person she has with her at the moment whether it is necessary to rub the entire body when doing a massage with oil. After all, the third condition for opening the skill is trying aroma candles and aroma oils on another person's body. The guy gets tense. The taxi driver assumes that the student's girlfriend asked him about it, but he, looking away in embarrassment, thinks that she is not there. He starts to laugh nervously, afraid to imagine what this process will look like. But then a message comes on his phone, and the guy picks it up. A flattered Julian on the other side of the screen exclaims with anticipation, wanting to eat cutlets, and his friend is going to die with him. By the time Giddy arrives at Julian's, night has already come into its own. They had been preparing for this for a long time, and right now the last one was lying on his stomach, almost completely naked, with a doomed look. Giddy, with approximately the same expression on her face, stands next to him, above him, and gives her friend a massage, rubbing his body with aroma oil. He asks in a broken voice how his dear guest is feeling, and he stutters and replies that he seems fine. Half an hour ago, Julian was asking his friend if he was sure that after he groped his ass, they would be friends. Giddy looks at his interlocutor with a withering gaze, assuming that he has completely lost his mind. The guy asks why and what kind of candles these are. Julian asks what Giddy wants from him, and he answers with a distant smile. His ass. He needs to touch his friend's ass. The guy angrily asks, so he always perceived him in this way, to which the interlocutor replies that he himself does not like this idea. He asks him to go to bed quickly before his mother returns, and Julian, also shouting, advises him to find someone else. But he quickly changes his mind when he hears that his friend will take him to Paris if he helps him. And Julian says that moment always comes. He continues, asking his masseur to remember that a ticket to Paris costs as much as his left buttock, and he intends to keep the right one in reserve. With a distasteful look, squeezing more oil onto his hand, Giddy says, while we're on the subject, it's time for the ass. And just as a curse escapes Julian's lips, the front door opens. A little later, a woman enters the room where the massage session has begun, informing her son that she has returned home. Seeing the picture before her, Giddy's mother's eyebrows reflexively rise and she mutters something inarticulately. Almost in the same inertial way, the female gaze drops down, focusing from the overall picture on a single place, which, as the genre dictates, turns out to be nothing other than Julian's ass, generously covered and shiny with aroma oil. A heart-rending scream escapes the woman's chest, and Giddy stops what she's doing, hastily trying to reassure her mother that she's got it all wrong. To the great happiness of all three, this misunderstanding was indeed cleared up a little later. Later, at the station, Julian wonders if he is doing the right thing, if he is pressing the right button, if he even needs to press it. Finally, he succeeds, and looking into the camera, he rejoices at his first live broadcast and gets down to business. Julian Ju says hello to everyone and lets the first viewers know that today is the debut of the streamer, Cute J. They ask him if he has a girlfriend, and the guy replies that he doesn't. But what's more important now is that he's going to France, and he offers to take a photo there. He asks his bro not to leave and says he'll dance, and Giddy suggests streamer Julian to hurry up so he doesn't miss his plane. A guy approaches his friend to ask if anyone is watching him at all, and gets the answer that no one is watching at all, oddly enough. One of the few viewers suspects that he saw the guy who appeared on the stream, but Julian quickly closes the shop, asking for a final subscription. And at the very last moment the viewer understands who the illuminated person is, and later the plane takes off, beginning its flight. Julian is happy, enjoying business class and saying he feels like he's in the clear, all thanks to Giddy, who fixes it thanks to Minnie. She bought the tickets. The guy continues to smile, but hears a voice from the side expressing annoyance, and turns in his direction. A blonde man sits nearby, holding a book in his hands, and smilingly remarks that he could be the one to buy them plane tickets. Giddy puts on a polite smile, declining, and Julian leans towards his friend and begins to whisper in his ear, asking a question. He wonders if it wasn't this same fashionista who last time treated them to croissants from their homeland. His interlocutor confirms this assumption. He remembers that Damien came several times a week after the festival with small gifts, and Giddy even wanted to throw him out. But instead of offering money again and talking about casting, this man listed the pros and cons of famous agencies, from casting criteria to the dark side of the fashion industry. He revealed many interesting things known only to experts. Damien, meanwhile, asks, by the way, that this is their first time flying to Paris, because if so, and they don't mind, he can give them a tour. Giddy gasps at the suddenness of the offer and thanks his interlocutor with a polite smile. But he still refuses, saying that he would not dare to distract a man who was flying there on business. Julian agrees with his friend, but the guy promises to definitely let them know if something happens to them, imagining one of the possible events in his head. Damien turns back to his book, not trying to push it any further, and Giddy is tense at the lack of response. The man finds this unusual because usually, next to a treasure, others like it immediately fade into insignificance. With this guy's attractive appearance, he can already work as a model, and the more he opens up, the more energy he will get. Perhaps Giddy's friend can help Damien change his mind, while Tim Jones is informed of the imminent arrival of his muse. The CEO, Pietro, asks in a calm tone what else he needs to know about him. They tell him that Damien was supposedly on the same flight as the muse by pure chance, but they know perfectly well that this is not true. Pietro knows him. Damien Tommaso is a young hunter who no longer even hides what and who he is hunting. Pietro thinks about it, suggesting that, on the contrary, it will even be better for them, because he literally shouts that he will stop the other directors. This can be used to one's own advantage, and the man begins to carefully draw up the framework of the plan in his head. But an uninvited thought bursts into his head, projecting the headache caused by Angela's joke, and Pietro becomes puzzled. The video was released more than 2 weeks ago, and even had subtitles in 10 languages, so the whole world now knows about their muse. But the task of these people was precisely to hide the true value of Giddy. They needed to make sure that everything would remain a secret in the future. The woman smiles sweetly, saying that she herself only found out about this today, and that now it is impossible to stop it or even cancel it. Pietro fakes a smile, even though magma is boiling inside him, and asks if this video was left online for 2 weeks on purpose. The interviewee notes that bragging is the basis of any luxury brand, because no one will hide a diamond ring for fear of thieves. Pietro bows back in his chair, thinking that this woman is a real hooligan, remembering the question, "But you like it?" The man wipes the sweat from his forehead, thinking about how well these two got along with Tim Jones, and wonders why everyone is so eager to drive him crazy. But the next moment a smile appears on his lips. He thinks about asking for caution, so as not to allow anyone to approach Giddy's hotel. And remembering that fiery speech of this guy, the man admits to himself that he really likes all of this. The friends arrive at the hotel closer tonight and after reserving a room head straight there. Julian falls onto the large bed, throwing his arms wide out to the sides and letting out a relieved sigh. Recalling how they were greeted, the guy admits that he always thought that such things could only be seen in movies, and Giddy agrees. They also recall the tense atmosphere that surrounded the two smiling people, which seemed to sparkle with tension. Julian asks his friend how he thinks he can gain recognition in the industry, and his friend retorts in a friendly manner. This is not even a world fashion show, but a friend is emerging. Even the level of the hotel is at a completely different level from those he had been to before. And this magnificent room with unlimited room service, there is even expensive whiskey, which means there will be a drinking party on the stream. And as soon as the guy goes to his profile and turns on the live broadcast, starting with his usual Jew hello, his eyes widen. He even cries out loud, unable to hold on, forcing his best friend to turn around and ask what happened. Julian asks his friend to look at the number of viewers, and he is amazed. Their number has exceeded 1,000, and this is less than a day. And the thing is that this morning Giddy showed up on the stream, and the latter continues to be amazed at how all these people could know him. A friend asks if he is an idiot, since he has thousands of followers on social media, and asks if this is his doing, and gets excited about the idea. Remembering that he saved half his ass for a rainy day, Julian, with a sly smile, is going to use it now. A friend asks Giddy to stream with him today, and he puzzledly agrees, adding that it's just this once. Julian is surprised, asking if the model Signor will only appear on the screen for a moment, and he retorts that these are two different things. The guy asks if he knows how much viewers can judge you for even a minor mistake made on a stream. Julian jokes that in that case, he will change the name of the channel to Failed Julian, because that would also be considered content. Giddy asks if the newbie streamer is being too positive, and he smirks and says that he is just a coward. Maslow's hierarchy of needs consists of 5 basic components. Satisfying the lower ones, he moves on to those located above. To satisfy the needs of the next level, you have to forget about what you have already achieved. It's like starving yourself for the sake of a beautiful figure. And this is precisely what caused Giddy to reject all the tempting offers coming from entertainment companies. The guy thinks, studying one of the business cards with interest and wondering if theirs really is better. But if you think about it, he likes everything now. And besides, this offer is too expensive, and now he has no reason to become a celebrity. And yet, being on his best friend's stream and seeing all the comments and views, GD finds it fun. Someone in the audience asks if he is okay, because his face is red, and a friend answers for him, saying that the professional model is embarrassed. Julian doesn't expect his friend to answer, so when it does, he's surprised while his friend braces himself. GD confirms the streamer's words, saying that he is indeed embarrassed, but he also didn't think they would be so much fun. Julian doesn't know whether to be happy or sad about this, but the fact is that the reaction caused a wave of delight among the audience is a fact. He can't stand it any longer and attacks his friend, reproaching him for speaking like a newbie, but using such techniques. Audrey approaches GD's room, and the voices and noise coming from inside naturally do not go unnoticed by Signor's employee. Later, the guys have to apologize not only to her, but also to the entire security team, and the stream continues. Sometime later, they leave their room and head to the designated location. GD's foot steps onto the red carpet, and the crowd erupts in anticipation as he takes the first step. GD acts naturally, smiling and waving cheerfully at the camera, but his companion looks tense. He didn't even think that an invitation to dinner might mean not an ordinary dinner, but a formal evening hosted by the Signor company. Julian isn't even sure if he can attend, but he knows for sure that this dinner will be full of serious people. For example, the actress, whom everyone considers to be the reincarnation of the goddess Venus, who now, skillfully smiling, greets those gathered. Or the most beautiful couple who behave according to the agreed-upon standard and live up to their status. And especially he, Robert Blue Smith, the inimitable handsome man who is the world's top model, who doesn't even have to do anything. Julian quietly tells his friend that if they continue to just stand here, he will definitely not be able to withstand all this pressure. But the tense smile turns to shock when the guy looks at his friend and sees what he imagines. GD doesn't pay much attention to anyone, but at the same time he acts as if he knows everyone present. He is incredibly confident. And he goes forward, leaving his friend behind, and he looks with awe at his retreating back. But Julian is not abandoned, for Giddy asks him to join him quickly. A friend remains a friend even here, and that is pleasant. Julian wonders how Lady Jadida could have given birth to such an incredible son. And they enter, walking through golden halls. Suddenly, a man in glasses appears in front of the guys, spreading his arms out to the sides and greeting Giddy with a friendly smile. The latter makes a similar gesture, only his facial expression looks more natural. Julian learns that the interlocutor's name is Pietro. Noticing how closely this young man communicates with CEO Signore, those around him understand that he is from Tim Jones's team. Pietro says he heard about what was happening in the country of Giddy, admitting that he particularly liked one moment, namely, the speech that the student gave during the festival. The guy, smiling politely, says that he simply repaid what he had already received. Calling his best friend over and patting him on the back in a familiar manner, Jidi introduces Julian to his interlocutor. They shake hands and Pietro says in English that he is pleased to meet him, and Julian also responds in a foreign language. The man turns to Jidi and says that he finds his friend very attractive, and Jidi replies that he used to be very jealous of him. Pietro exchanges a few more words with Tim's muse and leaves the young people with wishes for good fun and relaxation. When the man leaves, Julian asks what he said, since they spoke French, and his friend honestly replies that they think he is handsome. The guy grins contentedly, and then asks what Jidi said, and he jokes that he said he thought he was a gorilla. As Julian walks with his food to one of the tables to eat, he notices people looking at him, and they don't seem friendly at all. Joining his friend, he asks him about all these strange-looking people. They discuss Jidi. He wonders how he found out. They speak French, after all, to which he receives the answer. All these people look at them with incredibly insidious glances. There is nothing to understand here. And anyway, if Jidi had only worked in a 24-hour store, he would have learned to understand everything from just one look. The interlocutor says that nothing can be done, because, in essence, a newcomer who only debuted a year ago cannot be so successful. Julian is amazed at his friend's calmness, asking if he doesn't feel uncomfortable, and he replies that he can prove everything to them with his skills. One of the guests screams in shock in English, and the people closest to him turn around to his surprise. There are mountains of plates in front of two foreigners, one of whom has eaten his fill and is sprawled out in a chair, saying that this is real paradise. As they leave, the friends discuss the dessert, and the stunned guest continues to wonder if they are finished yet. Jidi turns towards the voice, the owner of which says in a displeased tone that she doesn't know who let this beggar in here. Her gaze and stubbornly crossed arms express contempt, but this is not enough, and she says that this is some kind of shame. She asks with displeasure if he isn't ashamed to just stare at someone who has worked much longer than him, without even saying hello. Not knowing who is in front of him, the guy politely greets him, and the girl demands that he repeat everything again, only with the name already mentioned. Jidi apologizes for his ignorance and asks the name of his interlocutor, who indignantly asks how such a newcomer cannot know it. Julian turns around at the indignant intonations and, noticing his friend, wonders why he's standing there and not eating. And why is he communicating with these people who look like customers from a 24-hour store? while the girl continues her indignation. And then she finds a new victim in the form of Julian, switching to him and angrily asking who he is to interfere. Oddly enough, the guy feels calm, smiling and asking if she doesn't know him. The interlocutor's voice turns into a shriek. She asks how she should know him. Julian continues his game, repeating his question in a deliberately calm and composed tone, but in a slightly different way. The girl calms down a little, asking if he really thinks they are equal. The guy turns to his friend, asking if there is hazing here like in the army. GD replies in the negative, saying that he heard that some people have banded together to get rid of such things. And he even has a specific example that stands nearby. And pointing at the woman with his hand, the guy calls her name. Hearing the familiar name, the troublemaker also turns to Eunice Long, her gaze expressing surprise and bewilderment. GD continues to point her hand at the celebrity, smiling softly. Julian looks at the woman with admiration and makes a characteristic sound. Eunice, who wanted to hide from prying eyes and kept to herself until now, is surprised. Her expression becomes flattered, and a shy smile appears on her lips as she is surprised to be recognized.